ゃあね。
I'm vibing!
Shout out to the chess club. We're aiming for a controversial 7 out of 10. But something's wrong with the game.
Death to all of them.
Assassins, Creed Valaha.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. How is everyone? Is everybody vibing? Rocking and rolling? Feeling good on a Monday? Feeling good on a Monday. Sparkling thoughts. Give me the hope to go on. How is everyone? Hopefully you're doing great. Today is a holiday here in the States. Memorial Day, which is a day where we take a moment to appreciate those who have fallen, mostly like armed services, law enforcement, that type of thing, for the service of the country. So cheers to all of those brave men and women who keep us all safe. Cheers, cheers, indeed. It's not booze, it's a coffee, but I figure it achieves the same end, right? Yeah, Jacob, our resident mod and editor, he just ran the Boulder this morning. And if you don't know what the Boulder is, it's a race in Boulder, and it's crazy.
Clean the house. Thanks for 7 months. B.
I pressed mute.
Struttle donated €5 through Super Chat. Hey Luke, there is a video by Anders covering the release schedule and news for Crimson Desert if you want to check it out.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we could check that out. I don't even know how I muted that just now, but I guess I pressed the button while trying to press the other button. I don't know what I did. Anyway, thank you. I mean, you're thanking me for 7 months? No, I should be thanking you for 7 months. Thank you, my friend. Also, Sad Kermit, which I love the name in the picture. It's just Kermit the Frog looking out a window sad. Kermit the Frog. Oh man. Thank you for 10 gifted memberships on YouTube. That's crazy. Jacob's modding from the car right now. How are your legs doing? It's a 10K, right? It's a 10K, so it's a pretty good race. Maps, maybe? Is this the route? So Boulder, Colorado, you guys run all the way over there? Cool. Look at that. So Jacob got out there, got busy this morning, worked his butt off. Speed walked it or ran it, I don't know. I'm dying. Yeah, I mean, a 10K is not like, it's not casual. That's 6 miles. That's a pretty good morning workout. That's a pretty good morning workout. That's pretty good. Yeah, plus at that elevation, it's nuts. Well, I mean, to be honest, we're used to the elevation because we live here. I think if you were coming from like sea level trying to run the Boulder, this would feel more like 10. But for us, we're just kind of used to it. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. Finished in 1 hour 15. That's pretty good though. I don't know. Is that pretty good? It sounds pretty good to me. I would have taken probably 2 hours. I don't know what it is, guys. My cardio has always been total ass. I get like wheezy. It's bad. Even back when I was doing Krav Maga and mixed martial arts and stuff, pretty heavily, it was always like, I remember our like trainer guy, it wasn't really a trainer, but like the guy that ran the classes that we were doing, he told me, he's like, because I was working out with my best friend Caleb, and he was like, okay, so Caleb, you're a swimmer, you wear your opponents down, okay? You just take as long as you can. They'll get tired before you do. Luke, you've got to finish this in like 60 seconds, otherwise you're screwed. And I was like, yep, checks out, because I've just always sucked at cardio. I have gotten better by like running and stuff, but yeah, I've never been good at cardio. So props, Jacob. My goodness. Hour 15. I do a 10K in an hour 20, which is considered super slow. On the pro level, the average is 50. Well, yeah, I mean, you see those, like, have you guys ever heard of Goggins? What's his, David Goggins? Is that right? The dude's a freak of nature.
Mile week, 2,000 pull-ups, 4,000 push-ups, and hundreds of reps at the gym. I hear it all the time. Goggins has a great message, but you don't want to end up like him. His body's all fucked up. You're not afraid of having a fucked up body. You're afraid of the fucking effort. See, what you don't understand is this. We're all being tested. And that road to success is a bumpy ass fucking road. Has fucking potholes, nails, detours and shit. Yeah. A lot of you are gonna die with a nicely preserved body. No plates, no bad knees, no bruises, no scars. Stay hard.
Stay hard, my friends. Stay hard. Is that how we should sign off all of our videos? Thanks for watching, guys. Much love. I'll see you in the next one. Stay hard. Salute. This is the guy that
I got an email the other day.
he just decided one day he wanted to run a marathon. He's told this story a bunch, but he's like, I wanted to run a marathon. And if you don't know, marathons are like 26 miles. They are huge. It's a beautiful house behind him. They're massive, massive races. And it's not something you just casually, impulsively decide to do, but he did. And so he goes and he starts running it. And then he's like, yeah. And I started like getting micro fractures in my shins and in my legs because they weren't ready for the trauma that 26 miles of running will do. And he just was like, oh, well, and he just kept running. He just kept running. Like the part of the brain, the human brain that's supposed to be like self-defensive and it's supposed to be like, wait, this is hurting me. I will stop now. He doesn't have that part of his brain. Or if he does, he can just turn it off. So he'll tell these stories where he's like, yeah, I ran so hard that I started sweating blood because I stayed hard. And you're like, oh, Jesus Christ. Like, calm down. It's like, geez, dude. Yeah, David Goggins is scary. He's scary. Is it good that, well, that's at the point. Yeah, he lacks the fear gene. At that point, honestly, like, you're not even really exercising. You're just like, it's like an exercise in proving to yourself that you can do something that you probably shouldn't be able to do. So for him, it's more of like a mental exercise as far as I can tell, which more power to him. I mean, he's doing great. But I mean, the other guy that also had the same mentality was a freak of nature bodybuilder. Like, pictures of him look photoshopped. They don't even look real. Yeah, Ronnie Coleman. Like, he actually looked like this. This isn't photoshopped. This is real. That's just how juiced he was. Like, you'd be hard pressed to find anywhere on that body you could fit more muscle. It's just crazy. It's wild. Like, he makes Arnold look small. Like, Arnold looks like a pretty well-balanced individual. And then Ronnie comes over here and is like, ugh. You know, it's just freaky. But now he like, I think he's doing better now, but he has had to have so many back surgeries. He's had to do all sorts of stuff to, like, you know, use walkers and wheelchairs and stuff because he screwed his body up going so hard. And you know, that's just what happens when you go that hard. I mean, again, was an absolute legend. Now he looks kind of like a deflated balloon. Still way better than me, to be fair. Him and Arnold. Arnold still is like freaking buff for somebody that's like 70 years old or whatever he is. But yeah, just go careful. If you're gonna do like extreme athletic stuff, just be cautious. Because you can go far. You can also screw up your body, you know. You can screw up your body real quick. Yeah. Luke, stop talking about interesting things. I stopped cleaning the house. Sorry. Bodies were meant to be pushed like that. Well, I mean, yeah, especially when you get to the high levels of bodybuilding. As I've said before, I've got family members that are bodybuilders, and I've talked to them about like the inner workings of it. And I used to follow bodybuilding fairly closely in college. And once you get to like the upper echelons, you're talking about like the guys are on regular cycles. They are taking insulin. They're taking human growth hormone. They're taking all manner of like gorilla semen injected straight into the veins. And it's all just crazy. And it makes them look like Adonises. It makes them look like a Michelangelo painting. But the human body doesn't naturally get that size for a reason. You know, it's just not meant. It's not evolved to handle that. So, you know, people will do it and then their joints are sore. Then all of their like ligaments and tendons are stretched to the absolute limit, you know? It's just, it doesn't really make sense. Gorilla what? Hey, if it works, right? Oh man. Oh, by the way, you guys know we did that Terrence Howard like reaction thing on Friday, and we posted a stream clip of it. And like we all agreed like we all agreed that it was, oh geez, yeah, I just pulled this up. We'll look at this. Paul coming out swinging with the reports. Well done, Paul. But we did that Terrence Howard reaction thing because Terrence, like, he believes 1 × 1 = 2. Like, he's not even wrong. He's just on another level of delusion. And we posted this video kind of going through it. And he just throws out mumbo jumbo that doesn't mean anything.
All motion is expressed in waves. All waves are curved. So where does the straight lines come from to make the platonic solids? There are no straight lines. So when I took the flower of life and opened it properly, I found a whole new wave conjugations that expose the in-between spaces. It's the thing that holds us all together.
Okay.
Which doesn't mean anything. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. He goes on, like, you know, he says all this other stuff. He created his own math, as you can see. 1 + 1 × 1 = 2. Associative and commutative laws plus 3 = 2. Because he thinks 1 × 1 should be 1 + 1. Like, no part of it makes any sense. It's just madness. Like, he just says 1 × 1 will equal 2. Like, what? It's just, okay, tell me you don't know how to do math without telling me you don't know how to do math. Yeah, some call them the Anunnaki, the sky people, whomever they were that gave the naive generation some 6,000 years ago a multiplication table and flat view of universal geometrical. They gave that poor misguided people a false axiom upon which to build their world, a false axiom that would behave almost as a bumper for our infantile-like species, a tutor as it were, a false axiom that would allow for a measure of growth and productivity for that civilization, but would inevitably lead to failure and its inevitable collapse. What? Like, just none of it makes any sense. It's just gibberish. But dude, we actually got some people that came in that were like teriologists. We had teriologists come into that comment section of that video. And granted, there weren't many of them. It was like a total of 80 people or something, which in the context of 22, 30, well, I think it's like 30 something thousand people watched that stream clip. It's like 80 people coming in. It's really negligible. And I'm pretty sure that they're just going around to all videos talking about Terrence Howard and they just defend him. Like, they search his name debunked or his name LOL cringe, whatever, and then they just go in the comment sections and defend him. Because it's all like comments where people say like, well, people laughed at Leonardo da Vinci at first. People laughed at Einstein. It's like, not, I mean, some people doubted their claims and then they proved it with math. You know, the math that he can't do because he doesn't believe in it. Like, you know, it was just like, okay, guys. Okay. So I think we'll have a policy when we get people that come in to chat and are like, well, actually, Luke, Terry makes a lot of good points. We'll do like a CAPTCHA. You know how like you have the CAPTCHAs to test if a computer is a computer or a human? But for us, it'll just be asking them what's 1 times 1. And if they get it wrong, we ban them. Like, that's the ultimate test. It's like, do I say what they want me to say, or do I hold to my beliefs that 1 times 1 equals 2? It's just like, it's all madness. It's all madness. Yeah. It's all a big conspiracy. Yeah. No, it's all just ridiculous. So I did not think we could actually. I did not think we would actually get any of them coming out and showing up. And some of them were probably trolls because I think a lot of them were memeing on it just a tad. But yeah, no, the one guy that was like, all of the greatest minds in history were laughed at. It's like, that's not true. And if that's your standard, like, so you look at the people who are most mocked in society and therefore they are the most intelligent. What? Like, okay. There are some pretty funny comments in this. This guy needs more drugs or less drugs. His current amount of drugs is not correct. Oh, man. I find intelligent people tend to explain things so that less intelligent people may understand, while stupid people will generate nonsense to appear intelligent, which no one understands. Yeah, it's like the old example of like gibberish. If you can't dazzle them with your brilliance, baffle them with your stupidity, you know, or you know, baffle them with BS. And in this case, I think it's just like 1 times 1 is not 2. 1 plus 1 times 1 does not equal 3. Like, it just doesn't. So anyway, yeah, that was funny. It was like being at the zoo and seeing somebody in the wild, like seeing a gigantic elephant in the wild. You're like, I mean, I knew they were real. I just didn't think I would get to see one in person. That's what it was like. Still no showcase news. Yeah, dude, it's a little surprising. I guess we could talk about that real quick. News segment. Ask for whether we're doing a free roam podcast. It looks like we'll do it Tuesday. Joel Raptor's schedule was like super booked up last week, so we were kind of constrained. But that's that. Yeah. Also, as I mentioned at the end of the Suicide Squad video, I'll be going to Summer Games Fest. So I will likely not be able to stream the event, but I will get to actually be there, and I'll get to try the games and talk to the devs and stuff. So if you guys have any questions you want me to ask about games that are at the show, make sure to let me know so that I can ask, because I think it'll be pretty cool. Actually went out, we got a dedicated camera just for the show because they won't let you take in cameras with detachable lenses. It has to be under a certain size and everything to go into the theater, but I got all the cameras and everything set. It's gonna be good. Which games you plan on checking out? Officially, the ones that they've confirmed will be there. Everything else, you'll have to wait and see. Because of course I can't like tell you anything. Jeff Grubb seemed to be really sure about the showcase. Yeah, well, let's just pull up the actual thing. Let's see. Let's see. According to Jeff Grubb, should be happening this month. Does anyone know?
Hey Luke, did you see that Sony actually put words in Neil Druckmann's mouth?
Yeah.
Say what he is getting hate for.
Yeah, I have that bookmarked. We'll look at it. Because I think it's pretty amazing that like they just straight up altered it. Like I said, I got the impression that this was corporate BS because like no devs are just saying, yeah, we think AI is going to revolutionize blah blah blah. Like nobody was really thinking that. I don't think any of them would really say it, but I didn't think that they were just straight up taking what he was saying and then rewriting it, which apparently is what they were doing, which is crazy. Like the fact that they would do that, but Jeff Grubb, where did he say like the PlayStation stuff? No matches for PlayStation. So I want to find the original stuff. Where am I? PlayStation Showcase. When is PlayStation event? Tell me about the PS Showcase. Is May over?
Oh man, I just thought I saw a mosquito.
I don't. Yeah, I don't really see the moment where he's talking about Mikey Happy and FPS. I just want to know. Jeff. Maybe I just go rumored PlayStation event. Maybe plan rumored. Could be a state of play, not a showcase. Okay, let's just do this. News segment. Okay. Rumor, next PlayStation event could be a state of play, not a showcase. PlayStation fans may be disappointed as the May event could be a state of play, not a full showcase as initially rumored. Yeah, we were kind of expecting a full showcase because they're supposed to announce new hardware like a PlayStation 5 Pro, which is supposedly releasing by the end of this year. And so if it's just like a state of play, then it's just smaller updates to games and stuff, which would be a little underwhelming. Not a little, it would be really underwhelming, especially because PlayStation has like nothing else this year. They have maybe a trailer for Ghost of Tsushima 2, but that's it. We know it's not releasing before the end of March next year, so there's just nothing other than that. And so we were kind of hoping that they'd have some big hardware announcements or something to show, but apparently it's the potential that it's just going to be a small little showcase. The exact date for Sony's next presentation is uncertain, leaving gamers in the dark about upcoming first-party game reveals. Though a May event has been heavily suggested, the month is almost over, so it would have to happen any day now. Despite the potential lack of a big showcase, Sony may still have exciting announcements for fans at State of Play. Credible insider Nate the Hate has suggested that the heavily rumored PlayStation event scheduled for May of 24 could be a State of Play and not a full showcase. If this is the case, then Sony's next showing might end up being a disappointment for PlayStation fans that are expecting a massive blowout of first-party game reveals from many studios under the platform holder. Yeah, it would be a bummer. It would honestly be a bummer. I see you guys in chat are like, well, maybe Spider-Man 3, maybe we get Wolverine, like a trailer for that. Maybe we get, Ghost of Tsushima 2 or whatever Naughty Dog's working on. But here's the deal, like I believe was it the CEO or CFO? It was a head honcho at Sony. He said They do not have any large tentpole releases for the rest of this fiscal year. So we know that even if they announce that stuff, it's not coming till mid to late next year at the earliest. So even if they have like a trailer for something, it doesn't mean that it's immediately exciting. And with the industry as it is, it's probably still going to get delayed. So it's like, oh, they announced Ghost of Tsushima for summer of next year. Then it's going to get delayed till the winter. Like, that's just how the cookies crumbled recently. But at least there would be something. At least there'd be an announcement or something. But the fact that there's the potential that insiders are saying it could be a state of play, not even a full showcase, that to me suggests they probably are not showing hardware, which would be very disappointing. I don't know if that means they're delaying the hardware till next year at some point when they can release it alongside a first-party game. Maybe that's what they're doing. Or maybe they're going to have a separate event later in the summer where they're actually going to showcase the hardware in full. Maybe that's what they're doing. I don't know. I just would think that they'd want to have something out there during the summer of announcements and everything, because a lot of stuff's about to get revealed and exposed in a fun way. Like, this summer is going to be pretty, we're going to get pretty swarmed with stuff, I feel. You know, we already know the stuff that's confirmed is like, we're getting Dragon Age at some point this year, so that's going to be revealed almost certainly this summer. We're getting AC Shadows, we're getting Star Wars Outlaws, which are each going to have big reveals and gameplay and all that stuff. We're going to get probably looks at games like, I think it's rumored, but it's pretty likely we get something on like the Horizon multiplayer game, Concord almost certainly. Like, there's a lot that's supposedly coming in the next few weeks. Probably a new Gears of War and a new Doom are being announced, the Indiana Jones game, a DLC for Starfield. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's supposed to come. And I would think that PlayStation would want to have something out there during the time when all of that's happening, but maybe they're just like, nope, we're just going to sit out and then come along in August and dominate the discussion there. Maybe that's their strategy. I don't know. It's a little underwhelming though. Personally, it could also be that this event for May is literally just going to be looking at Concord. And if you don't know Concord, we talked about it a little bit on Friday, but it's the new game that is coming from, what's the name of the studio? Firewalk. So Firewalk is a studio that PlayStation acquired. And it's basically a smaller team creating worlds that ignite imagination and connection. Takes a collaborative team of top-tier creators. At Fireworks Studios, we aim to deliver awesome gaming entertainment rooted in strong gameplay and inspiring art that captures the joy of playing together. That probably could be applied to literally any game studio that would say the same thing. So it doesn't really mean much of anything. That being said, they've claimed that it is going to be bringing together of peoples. It's the power of games to build connection and inspire social play. The Firewalk team is driven by the type of exciting, unexpected moments and shared experiences that multiplayer games create. Every time you log on is the beginning of a new adventure, and every match is an opportunity for a new story. It's these ideas or ideals that define Concord, its universe or unique universe of vibrant colors and rich cast of colorful characters. I don't know what any of that means. And that's why they're going to do a reveal, but this is their next big live service game that Jim Ryan was pushing for. And it's the only thing that we pretty much know is being shown by PlayStation in the next couple of months. And so if like there is no actual event, there's no showcase, and it's just a state of play for Concord, I think people are going to be pretty riled up and upset. Unless it looks amazing, people are going to be like, are you kidding me? This is all we've got? Another live service reveal? Seriously? I think people are going to be quite upset.
MR Steel Yo Kill _54 donated $5 through Super Chat.
Thank you.
So all weekend I replayed Assassin's Creed 2. I got the platinum trophy for it.
Holla.
The feather collecting is mind-numbing lol. Happy Monday, Luke.
Yeah, dude, for real. I remember doing it. I had my little gaming, like, it wasn't even a gaming laptop, but it was like an old hand-me-down laptop from my dad that I used for work. I was playing AC2 on it. It runs at like 20 frames. trying to get those little feathers with like the choppy frame rate and everything on the blurry screen. You know what? It's good memories. I think back on it very fondly, and I'm like, yeah, Those were the days. Those are the days. Now, like, it's funny. Nowadays, I throw a fit about it. But back then, it was like, I'm just glad to be playing a game, you know?
The Nerdeye Giant donated $4.99
I love how it pronounces your
through
name.
Super Chat.
Nerdeye Giant.
No announcement yet. Sometimes I hate these leakers going back and forth. What do they gain from this?
Clout. They get attention. There's also, you know, you can get paid through X now. So if you're an influencer on Twitter/X and you get a lot of views, you get paid out on that based on impressions and stuff. So it's why they say that it's like rage baiting is a problem on Twitter, because people will say things that are demonstrably false or just made up because it'll get engagement. And that's why they hate getting community noted, because when you get a community note on X, you no longer get paid out for that post, which is why that's like the worst thing that could possibly happen to you if you're a rage baiting poster, you know? Which is just funny. But yeah, thank you guys for the super chats. I mean, I think with a lot of this, there are just conflicting things. Like, you could have, like, at one point years ago, like 2 years ago or something, I was talking to a guy that was involved with Xbox, like upper level marketing at Xbox. And he was like very upfront. He was like, yeah, so it looks like right now, Starfield should still be able to hit targets, probably be out late 2022, maybe early 2023, but we're making good progress. That's basically what he said.
Bite Size Cobra Vids donated £10 through Super Chat.
Oh, hell yeah.
Shout out to my favorite gaming homeboy. Currently playing a new MMO called Tar Island. That's what's up. I hate sickos.
Yeah, I hate sickos, dude. I hate sickos, dude. And I just yesterday I was watching the Full Evicted saga. Well done on that. It was fantastic work. But yeah, what is it? What is it exactly that he says? It's like, I hate sickos more than sickos. Or I can't remember. Yeah, but that is most definitely what is up. That is most definitely what is up. Yeah, bite-sized Cobra Vids. If you guys want to ever check out like King Cobra JFS, I've talked about him on stream a handful of times. If you ever want to see that, like some amazing content around King Cobra, bite-sized Cobra Vids is where it's at. It's an OG. Like seriously, I think Bite Size is actually the one that got me. It sounds so weird to say, but got me into King Cobra. Again, it just sounds wrong to like to say that, but like all the sagas, like the Wendy saga, I think is actually what got me captivated into the Cobra verse. So shout out to Bite Size. That's most definitely what's up.
That's most definitely what's up.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And then also SOTV or SOTV, thank you for the super chat. I take it you've seen the recent Space Marine 2 multiplayer content trailer and news. Yeah, we should look at that too. Let me pull up that just before I forget. Space Marine 2 trailer here. Yeah, it looks really good, dude. I thought it looked really good, and then they like were delaying it. I was like, okay, this is worrying, but it seems like they actually pulled it together from what I'm seeing in the trailers and stuff. At least looks very good. We'd love to ham it up about Cobra sometime. Oh hell yeah, dude. Hell yeah. Cobra is like such a fascinating creature. Like a legend in many ways. Yeah, even just from a YouTube perspective, literally everything you should do on YouTube, he does the opposite, and it still works. Like, it doesn't make any sense. He should not be successful on YouTube at all, but he just is. And he has, oh dude, he just passed 100k subs. I didn't even know that. He's actually gonna get a silver play button. Like, that's insane. That's crazy. Like, it's outrageous. But yeah, should we hear one of his jokes then get back to it?
Good evening, YouTube. So I have a couple of Josh jokes. What's a Model T Horn's favorite kind of lettuce? Arugula.
Okay, that's funny.
What's wintertime's favorite kind of seafood? Snow crab.
Okay, those are actually pretty funny. Those are actually kind of funny. I'll give him that. Normally it's just him farting into the microphone or something, but that's actually pretty good. Anyway. Where was I? Yeah, only 5K till this channel gets the play. Yeah, no, I'm gonna actually have 2 silver play buttons, which is gonna be crazy. And we're on our way. I mean, months ago we were projecting like sometime in May or June. And at this point, I'm guessing, sometime mid-June, we should be able to get it, which is crazy. Like, we'll actually hit 100K. It's outrageous. Okay. Where was I? I got distracted. Hazardous Roman, thank you also for subbing with Prime. Thank you, my friend. So, going back to all of this, where's the tab? Here it is. Going back to all of this, I'm getting the feeling, especially now that leakers are starting to walk back the scope of the event, I'm getting the feeling that this is just going to be like a 20-minute showcase covering Concord, and that's it. It's just going to be a look at Concord, and it's going to be like, look, it's a live service multiplayer game. That's probably fine, but you need better than fine to be successful in the live service space. So we'll see what it actually looks like. I don't think anybody really knows, because all the descriptions are super vague. Like, it brings together people and it builds connections and inspires social play. Okay, tic-tac-toe can do that too. Like, I just don't know what the hook is here, but we're gonna find out. But I'm getting the feeling that this is probably just going to be a big show for that. Responding to a fan asking about PlayStation's rumored showcase in May, the leaker Nate the Hate shared his thoughts on a post on Twitter, alleging that Sony's May event is still on track. However, he added that he expects it to be a state of play earlier next week instead of a traditional summer showcase. The claims of some type of PlayStation event in May fall in line with recent reports made by fellow insider Jeff Grubb, who stated on several occasions that Sony's next presentation would happen within this month. No rumor up to this point, however, had suggested that it wouldn't be a showcase. And Nate just says, Sony's May event is still on track, but I expect it to be a state of play. Given the fact that little is officially known about their first-party roadmap, the potential lack of a proper showcase may come as a surprise to many fans of the brand. After all, gamers have still been left in the dark on what developers like Naughty Dog, Bluepoint, Bend, Media Molecule, House Marquee, and Sucker Punch are making. Although the previous State of Play in January of 24 was well received, if the next PlayStation event is nothing more than that and isn't a showcase, then fans may not get updates on what the majority of Sony studios are working on, which will probably disappoint many. Which, absolutely, I think is the case. Yeah, no, absolutely it would be the case. I think part of it is that there's been a general consensus in the industry that they don't like revealing stuff so far in advance. If you go back to the announcement, I talked about this in the Neil Druckmann video we did on the main channel, but the announcement for The Last of Us 2, for example, that announcement was E3 of 2016. Or not E3, it was December. It was PlayStation Experience. Yeah. So it was December of 2016. Like, that's crazy. 2016, the game came out 4 years later. Technically 3.5 if we're being pedantic, but that's wild. Like, they really took a lot of time for it. And I don't think that they want to do anything like that again. So now they are trying to announce it much closer to the release date. And I think that's a better strategy, because you look at some of these other companies and, like, for example, The Elder Scrolls 6, which is still probably 2 to 3 years away, minimum. More, I would guess more like 4 or 5. But The Elder Scrolls 6 was announced as of today 6 years ago. 6. You remember back when Cyberpunk 2077 was coming out and, like, we're getting ready for the trailers and all that, and everybody was stoked on it, and then we got the, it was Cyberpunk announcement. we were talking about how crazy it was that the announcement trailer for Cyberpunk 2077 was released in 2013. We were like, wow, it will have been 7 years since the announcement by the time we actually get the game. 7 years. That's so long. And now we already are almost at that point with the Elder Scrolls 6. That's wild. That's wild. But that's just how it's going. Oh, I think it's my food. My Factor meal. I told you guys I love Factor. But the guys that do the deliveries for Factor, they just come in like regular cars and drop it off and deliver it, where at least where I am, it's not like through UPS or FedEx or anything. So it always looks a little sketchy because it's just like, oh, an SUV pulls into my driveway and then they just start unloading something. I'm like, uh-oh, here's the end. But no, it's fine. Anyway, so I think with one thing, it's been a generally agreed upon thing that companies don't want to have this big of a gap between announcement and release, even though they're currently dealing with it with a lot of games like in Elder Scrolls or something like that. They want to avoid that if they can. So I think PlayStation's hesitant to announce Naughty Dog's next project. They're hesitant to showcase Ghost of Tsushima 2 before it's ready. And I get that. I understand that. But I do think there's a broad lull in the industry right now, where there's, like on Xbox's side, there's a lot of big stuff coming. Third-party devs have some big stuff coming like Assassin's Creed and Star Wars, but there's not a whole lot coming from first party on PlayStation's side, for example, that we know about. Like they're working on stuff, but we just don't know anything else about it. It's very, very open-ended. And maybe it's that they're just planning on coming out swinging for the fences like next year, and they're gonna just blow everyone's minds with those games and stuff, with a PS5 Pro and with all that craziness that they'll have. But it feels weird that there's just nothing that we know about right now. You know, it's a little frustrating. 2025 could be the biggest year of gaming. Yeah, it's gonna have, I think, the biggest number of blockbusters that we've had in a hot minute. 2023 was great because we had a lot of like critically acclaimed games. We had a lot of 10 out of 10s. But I think 2025 is going to be the year of big blockbuster games. Like that's going to be the story there. And I mean, I'm okay with it. We've also had a bit of a lull with big epic games like that. So I'm down for it. New 2018. Yeah, kind of like 2018 was exactly. Yeah. Live service delayed their development. Yeah, without a doubt, a lot of these studios got tasked with making live service games, and it has caused a lot of the production schedules to get kind of bloated. So, yeah. I think that's definitely a thing. This is that Baldur's Gate music, and I like it. I like the vibe, but also the faint is like a little... It disrupts my thinking. Just a tad. Here, we'll do Skyrim, but it's lo-fi beats. There we go. That works. Okay. Pierre, can you give a shout out to my girlfriend Hillary, who has to put up with me listening to you in our 9-hour Memorial Day trip? Yeah, shout out to Hillary. That's Pogs. That's goated right there, putting up with that. My wife like gives me crap when I want to listen to my podcasts and stuff in road trips and in the car. So the fact that you're willing to let Pierre listen to my dumb ass is pretty impressive. So shout out to Hillary right there, for real. Okay. Yeah, but I think a lot of games are going to get delayed because of GTA 6. Yeah, it depends on what the bubble's like. If they want to give it like a month or two after it releases, I think that makes sense. I don't think they need to give it too much bubble ahead of time. So I think you might see a lot of games get kind of rushed out the door as well. Games that maybe need to be delayed. Like say they were targeting a September 15th release. And then GTA 6 is like, yeah, we're releasing September 15th. I think you'll see a lot of companies maybe decide to get it out by September 1st instead of delaying it by a month or two.
FR35HXKI115 donated $4.99 through Super Chat.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hey Luke, I plan to start streaming on Twitch and uploading on YouTube soon. Do you have any tips about starting from zero following?
It's a lot easier now than it has been in years past. Without a doubt, the one surefire thing you absolutely should do is utilize like TikTok, Reels, stuff like that. It's wild the growth you can have from those platforms. YouTube Shorts works wonders as well. It's a slower burn. TikTok, you can post something within a day and have 1 million views on it. YouTube Shorts, it tends to be a little bit slower. So you'll post it and you might have 100 views at the end of the first day, but then you'll look up one day and it's like at 1 million and you don't even know what happened. So YouTube's much better about the slow burn on those. But the discoverability is crazy high with short form content. So do streams, do videos, all that stuff, just like you would have done years ago, but really utilize short form content because that will work wonders. Like it's really probably the only reason that this live channel is doing as well as it is because of the short form content that Trevor, my short form editor's done such a good job on, and Jacob's been killing it with the live stream clips and stuff. Like that's a whole thing. For a second I thought Luke said he literally listens to his own podcast. Oh no, that'd be weird. That's like that's another level of likes to listen to his own voice. No, I've said this before, but one of my guilty pleasures is like true crime podcasts. So I'll listen, like probably my favorite podcast ever is I'll put this out there just in case you want to check it out. It's a podcast by Skip Hollandsworth. And Texas Monthly, and it's called Tom Brown's Body, and it's about an actual case that happened in Canadian Texas. Like an actual missing persons case of a boy named Tom Brown that disappeared the night before Thanksgiving. And it's just a baffling case, but the podcast is really, really well done. And it's just fascinating. And just when you think you've maybe put the story together, there's another plot twist. Just no part of the story makes any sense at all. The whole thing is just brain bending, and it's all a true story. It's crazy. Yeah. So I'm a big fan of this. Just shout out to Tom Brown's. That sounds weird. Shout out to Tom Brown's Body. No, shout out to Skip Hollandsworth and to the team over at Texas Monthly. They did a great job on that podcast. Highly, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. You watch Casual Criminalist? Oh yeah, Simon. He does a lot. He's like an inspiration as a YouTuber. Dude's got like 15 channels, all with 1 million subs. Like the dude's a freakish workaholic. He's wild. Yeah, he does great work. Yeah, really does. Okay, Pierre, cheers. Good luck. Drive safe on that 9-hour trip. That's crazy. Drive safe. Okay, let's talk about this real quick because somebody just pointed this out to us, and I think it's important. So, new segment. Like audible liquid chocolate, just flows. Hellblade 2 launches as the 23rd most played Xbox game. Reporting by Paul Tassi. Okay. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 launched last week to solid reviews from both fans and players. It's one of Xbox's higher profile exclusive releases this year, possibly the highest given that Call of Duty is cross-platform, but it may not have made much of a splash in terms of total players. At And at Microsoft, every studio feels like it's being put on trial lately. Absolutely they are. We only have a limited array of metrics to go on in the current state of relatively non-transparent game performance, namely 2 when it comes to Xbox games. First, there's the top 50 most played Xbox games list that is updated every few days on a bit of a delay. It took a few days, but Hellblade 2 has debuted on the list in 23rd place. It originally showed up in 30th last night. This is despite its inclusion on Xbox Game Pass. So to be clear, this counts Xbox Game Pass. It's just who's playing it on the Xbox platform, which is crazy that it's not even that high. Like, of course, Fortnite, Call of Duty, Roblox, oh god, Rainbow Six, NBA, Minecraft, Apex, GTA 5. By the way, I'm just going to ask for people to reference in chat. I tried playing Apex yesterday and it kept crashing on me. Is that a new thing? Or is it just me? Is it a me problem? I was trying to play Apex. I was like, I got the itch and I was like, oh, I'll re-download it, get back into it. And it keeps crashing randomly. I had to uninstall Valorant just to get it to boot because of the like anti-cheat in Valorant caused conflicting something or other in Apex. It was stupid. But anyway, let me know if I'm the only one, if you've also had problems with crashing. But they go through this, you know, so we got 5, 10, 15, 20, 21, 22, 23. Now, it is very niche. No one's doubting that. It is very niche. When you look at the other top performers, like most of these are very broad. Dead by Daylight, you could maybe say is niche, but it's also a huge game. Forza, you could be like, oh, well, it's a driving niche. Yeah, but it's also very wide appeal, I feel. Apex, Minecraft, NBA, like these are all very broad games in terms of popularity. So you could say that it's impressive, like it's even this high. But still, you would think and hope that for their big release for the first half of this year, it would be in the top like 5. You'd hope, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? The caveat here is that this list is based on hours played. Hellblade 2 is a relatively short game, about 6 to 8 hours for most players. Mine was like 5 hours and 28 minutes or 24 minutes, something like that. I genuinely am not sure how it could take you 8 hours to get through the game, unless you were playing it on like very hard and were not very good at combat, or if you were spending a ton of time in photo mode, for example, that could inflate it. But if you're just like sitting down and you play the game, I seriously don't know how it could take you 8 hours. I have no idea. It's really crazy. So anyway, still at launch, you might imagine those hours would add up to something a bit more significant, given its place in Xbox's lineup and its availability on Game Pass. The second metric is that we have our Steam numbers, which are always somewhat controversial, but it's just data. In this case, it would indicate interest for the $50 game outside of Xbox ecosystem. Hellblade 2 peaked at 3982 players at launch. For context, the poorly received Redfall peaked at 6124. Problem is, it's also a Game Pass game, but so was Redfall. And I mean, I felt Redfall was already pretty niche, but I think with Redfall there were a lot of people that were just curious about the dumpster fire and wanted to see it for themselves. With Hellblade 2, it's not even like bad or terrible. It's just disappointing. Like, it's just underwhelming. It doesn't do anything better than the first game except visuals, and that's it. Like, and my problem was, like, they pitched and described it as like, yeah, we rebuilt the combat system and everything, and then you play it and mechanically it's the same, if not like a little bit worse than the original game. So I don't know, it's just broadly frustrating. But with all that said, the key takeaway is that there do not seem to be all that many total players for Hellblade 2 at launch. However, we simply do not know at this point what Xbox considers to be a metric for success, especially with something like AA Game Pass games. But everyone is understandably on edge after the shutdown of Hi-Fi Rush's studio, a hugely acclaimed game that Microsoft widely bragged about as a success at the time. According to reports, Ninja Theory's next game is already greenlit, and they're at no danger of being shuttered like other studios. That's not official and was not claimed after these launch numbers, but it would be very unwise for Microsoft to cut and run from a talented studio if Hellblade 2 underperforms by internal metrics, as it was unwise to do so with Tango Gameworks. Yeah, the original Hellblade sold 1 million copies over its first year and ended up with 6 million players in 4 years. But now in the Game Pass era, sales are fractional and it's about total players or hours played, and only Microsoft has full access to that data. Given everything, however, even with close to identical reviews, Xbox's exclusivity and sequel arriving 7 years later seems to have limited Hellblade 2's reach. A great many people are certainly enjoying it, but it seems far fewer than the audience of the first game based on what we're seeing here. And that's the vibe I'm getting, is like people love the original game because it was a really interesting concept and gimmick. And it also just, I'm going to say it, I think appealing to PlayStation gamers, like this is the kind of game PlayStation gamers eat up. They love it. They love it. The super cinematic, narrative heavy stuff, they eat it up. And Xbox gamers, they just have never really gotten a lot of these games, so there's not that many people. Like the people that would like these kinds of games went to PlayStation because that's where these games were, and then Xbox is bringing this out, and it's like, okay, so you got one, but the audience isn't there, you know? So it's just like, I think everybody could have seen this coming. Let's see, Brynworld. I think you cannot compare Redfall and Hellblade at all. Redfall had a pretty big high, was advertised everywhere, and it's multiplayer. It's kind of sad to say, but I feel like you maybe should compare it to games like Hi-Fi Rush, even though it was a shadow drop. I do think marketing-wise, I recall the marketing for Redfall being much more aggressive. That game was everywhere. They were doing tons of preview events. They were sending it to YouTubers for preview coverage. Like, they were really trying to push that game. And yes, it was multiplayer, and I'm sure that's partly why. But still, like, it's, if you're comparing it to like, okay, these both were games that were the big game for the first half of the year from Xbox, you would think that they would advertise them on similar scales and stuff, but it just seems like they did not really think that this was going to perform in a similar way. And so they just didn't bother. That's the vibe I think everybody got, was just that Xbox didn't feel like Hellblade 2 was ever going to be that huge. So they just didn't waste a lot of money trying to turn it into something huge. And I think, honestly, in hindsight, that was probably a safe call. You know, they didn't want to spend $100 million marketing this game out the ass and then have tons of people buy it and try it and realize it's 5 hours long and super niche. Instead, they're like, yeah, we'll make sure everybody's aware that it exists. And then if they are interested, they will buy it. And if they're not, they won't bother. And then they won't downvote us or anything. They won't review bomb us. So we'll call it good, you know? Luke, do you think they should have kept working on Bleeding Edge instead of this? My understanding is that Bleeding Edge was a catastrophic failure. I mean, they literally abandoned it within 12 months. So they could have kept working on it, but I don't think anybody would have, I don't think anybody was playing it. Yeah, see? It's because all-time peak 4 years ago, 1,400 people. Can you even boot it up? Does anyone actually have the game? Is it even playable? Or did they shut down servers? Because this is, I mean, April 15th, they had 14 players. It's playable and on Game Pass. Woof, dude. Buzz your girlfriend. I mean, for a year, the peak in the last year was 14 players through Steam. Granted, it's on Game Pass, so that's something, but this is why it was like, once we started looking back and we realized, oh, this was their last game. It wasn't Hellblade 1. This was their last game. So Hellblade 2 is like the game after Suicide Squad for Rocksteady. It's like the game that the live service crew made. And on one hand, that makes you feel better because it's like, okay, they abandoned this pretty much early to mid 2021. I believe it was January of 21, they officially ended support. So if you say that they then had the entire team move over to Hellblade 2 at that point, and they entered full production, say middle of 2021, then they spent basically what, 2.5, 3 years making Hellblade 2. And then you're like, okay, that makes sense why it's the size it is. Much better than 7 years, and this is all we got for it. But it doesn't really excuse it. It's just woof. But yeah, I get the vibe again that Bleeding Edge was something they were working on when they sold to Xbox, so that they could be like, yeah, see, we're going to make a live service game and make tons of money. It's like basically Overwatch, but it's bleeding and it's edgy. And then they were bought for 185 something million dollars. This was a catastrophic flop. This did not make a penny. And so then they were like, okay, well, we'll make Hellblade 2. And they announced that and put that out. And it just seems like they're playing the long game with Ninja Theory. And I'm sure that given enough time and money and resources, they could build out a Naughty Dog level in terms of production value game, but they're going to need a lot more than 2.5, 3 years. Yeah, they're a small game of 80 people. Absolutely. No, nobody's questioning that. Pretty sure I mentioned it in my review that it's only 80 people. But small studios do not charge small studio dollars. Like they're charging the same amount of money, you know? So anywho, let's, what do we want to do next? What do I want to tackle? Let me touch on this real quick, just because some people might not have seen it. News segment. So we saw this post by Tom Henderson, and I took it like, I was pretty surprised by it, but basically Insider Gaming has been able to verify with multiple GameStop employees that Black Ops 6 will release on past gen consoles, specifically the PS4 and Xbox One. And the plan also, as alluded to in the FTC hearings, the plan is to also bring Call of Duty to the Nintendo Switch, but the current Switch is not powerful enough, so they are going to wait for the Switch 2, and then they'll be bringing Call of Duty games to that platform as well. So you'll be able to play all of them on all the platforms. But they've said that they've been able to confirm it. According to developer sources, the franchise doesn't necessarily need to move away from past-gen consoles since the move of Call of Duty HQ. As part of Microsoft and Activision deal, which will bring COD to Nintendo for 10 years, it's understood that Call of Duty will be released on Nintendo Switch platforms, including the Switch 2, or starting with the Switch 2, presumably next year, as the original Switch isn't powerful enough, blah, blah, yep. So, as people are saying, diamond hands. So essentially Black Ops 6 is an Xbox One game, just upscaled on everything else. Basically. And like, I tweeted out about it because I was like, it's crazy that 4 years into the generation and we're still getting AAA games releasing for last gen hardware that's over a decade old. Because at this point in 2024, if you're releasing on the PS4 and Xbox One, that is hardware from 2013. And like the Xbox One was considered pretty weak for 2013. That was like the big talking point around the time, was that the PS4 was, well, a more capable gaming machine. So like, it's just wild. But that's, you know, you're developing for the lowest common denominator. You're limited in terms of scope and scale and what you can do. There's multiple defenses to it. Some people will be like, well, shooters are not that taxing and demanding. Like, yeah, you can crank a bunch of knobs and add cool visual effects and stuff, or increase texture resolutions and things like that. But at the end of the day, calculating bullet fired, bullet travels and hits the target with this hitbox, blah, blah, blah. That's not that crazy intensive. So it is scalable. And I think it definitely is scalable. And of course, they put a lot of time and effort into optimizing, but it still means scope is limited. Like, you could do some crazy arenas, crazy like dynamic arenas and stuff with destructible environments and really cool stuff if they were not held back by hardware that was weak a decade ago. You know, you could crank it. And I mean, Jez Corden replied and was like, why force people to upgrade? The business is selling games and microtransactions, which absolutely is the case. And what I said was, no one's saying there isn't a reason behind it. Clearly, the user base on last gen is significant, and they'll make more releasing everywhere. But I still think it's fair for people to feel like games are being held back and could be better if made exclusively for modern hardware. And this is the thing, like, from a business perspective, makes total sense. From a gamer's perspective, if you bought the new hardware, I think you're totally justified in feeling ticked off by this move, because you're like, I paid in for the next gen, and I feel like I'm not getting treated the way I thought I was when I was buying into an ecosystem that was meant to evolve gaming and improve it, you know? But the numbers are pretty clear. It's because, as Tom Henderson reports, 48% of PlayStation players that play Call of Duty are on PS4. Half of all PlayStation Call of Duty players are on last gen hardware. So to make it next gen exclusive just gives up half of PlayStation's revenue. Like, you might get some people who bite the bullet and are like, okay, I'm going to sell a bunch of stuff and I'm going to save up and I'm going to get the PS5 so I can play Call of Duty upgraded and stuff. You might get some people, but a lot of people will be left behind, because at this point in the generation, there's probably two reasons why somebody doesn't have a PS5 if they're playing on a PS4. And it's either because they just don't feel the need to, because the games haven't really pushed them into that position, or because they can't afford it, because games are like, they pay $500 for a console, and with tax and extra fees and maybe another controller, whatever, it might be $550, $600. And then they get that, whoop-de-doo, now you got to pay a $70 game just for one. Then you got to go spend another probably $100 for the deluxe because you want to play it early or something. Like, all of a sudden, all this money starts to get fleshed out. And I can understand why people don't have that money. And it's like tough to be in the position as the devs and publisher to be like, yeah, well, all those people that can't afford it, yeah, well, screw them. We're going to make it next gen exclusive. So I get both sides of it. I understand the perspective. But again, I think it's fair for people that did pay in for the current gen. I think it's fair for them to also feel frustrated by it. You know, I think both sides are right to feel frustrated. If they made it next gen exclusive, all the 48% of PlayStation players that are playing on a PS4, they would be right to feel frustrated by that because they can't afford a PS5. I think they'd be right to feel that way because it does suck. But on the other side, by keeping it last gen compatible, they're also limiting the scope and scale. And so for people that did buy into the next gen, they feel like their games are being held back by decade-old hardware, and they feel frustrated. So I think both sides are understandable, you know. I get it. But I think at the end of the day, eventually you're going to have to bite the bullet. By this logic, if we're just always going to be keeping games on the platforms where there's a lot of players, like that's exactly how Diablo Immortal happens. You all have phones, don't you? Do you know how many billions of phones there are in the world? If we make a game that can go on those platforms, we'll make tons of money. And so many people will be able to play it. They'll be so thankful. Yeah, and I guess you could counter and say, well, we did get Call of Duty mobiles. So I guess they did it. But that's a standalone game. Like, if they were doing Call of Duty Black Ops 6 for the PlayStation 5, and then they had a different game made by a different studio that was built for the PS4 and Xbox One, and also could be played on the modern stuff, that would at least make more sense. Kind of like what Ubisoft did back in the day with like AC Rogue and AC Unity. They launched like in the same year. Rogue. AC Rogue. So AC Rogue launched in November of 2014. And AC Black Flag released in October of 2013. But Rogue was playable on PS3 360. So just like they released Black Flag in October, and then they release, where's Unity? So they release Black Flag in October of 2013. In November of 2014, they released AC Rogue, and in November, the same day, November 11th, the same exact day, they release AC Unity for next gen consoles. So you could play Rogue on PS4 and Xbox One, but you could also play it on PS3 and 360. And then Unity was only available on PS4 and Xbox One. And so they just double dipped, you know, so they gave it to everybody as an option. If you were on last gen, you had a game to play. If you were on next gen, you had this game to play and you had this game to play. And I think that might be a reasonable compromise, you know. I could understand that as an option. But instead, it looks like Black Ops 6 is just going to be fully cross-generational. They're going to keep it scalable because I think they'll announce that it's being ported to the Switch too. And I get it. More player numbers. There's more people on those platforms. I understand why the decision was made, but I still think it's frustrating for everybody, you know, that did buy into it. Have you seen that Black Ops 6 is going to have Saddam Hussein and 9/11 as part of the campaign? It's going to be no Russian for modern players. Yeah, I saw it was rumored. I don't know if it's been confirmed. If it has been confirmed, I just haven't seen that, but I did see it was rumored. I think it's the old difficulty of like, if a tragedy happened long enough ago, people will tolerate entertainment content being produced off of it. But if it's too soon after the tragedy, it's seen as distasteful, you know? And so you're towing a line with it. Like for example, this is a deep cut. This is a deep cut. Yeah, this is just so weird. For example, after the assassination of the American president Abraham Lincoln, people are like, okay, let's have some reverence. Let's show some reverence for this great leader who was assassinated in cold blood. And let's just take a breather, everybody. But after enough time passes, it's seen as acceptable to create Abraham Lincoln the Vampire Hunter. And people just make this out of it, you know? It's like, huh. Okay, weird choice, but okay. So at a certain point, once enough time passes, people seem to move on and kind of forget about the fact that like this was an actual event, you know? 9/11's still pretty recent.
Judson Watkins donated $4.99 through Super Chat. Have you seen that Black Ops 6 is going to have Saddam Hussein and 9/11 part of campaign?
So yeah, I mean, I think it's. I will keep an open mind because I think there's ways that it could be done. Respectfully feels like a weird word to use for it, but like where I'm open to it is that there is a generation of people playing games right now, playing games like Call of Duty right now, that did not experience 9/11, that did not watch the towers fall on TV. Like I was at that time 4 years old, and I remember being in the family room, and I remember seeing on the TV those images of the towers burning. I remember seeing that, and I remember my mom, like very shaky and disturbed by it, of course, like ushering us kids into the backyard so that we wouldn't see it. Like I remember that very clearly. It's like a staple in American life. Is a lot of people that were alive during that time can tell you exactly where they were and what was going on when that happened. But there's a whole generation right now that never experienced that. And so to tell them that story and to help it live on in that way in the form of a video game could be a really interesting way of educating an entire generation on that event, which I think could be a very good thing for everybody to remember the story and remember what happened and never forget it. It could be done in a really distasteful way. It could be done in a very disgusting way. But if it can carry the story on again and introduce it to a new generation, I think that that's wonderful. I think that that's what, honestly, people should be doing by telling the story. But if we can tell the story through a more interactive medium, then wonderful. But if it's something like really toxic and like disgusting, and it's something where like they have you fly planes and like, you know, where it could go, that would be an instance where I would be very upset. But I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to probably have it as a topic in the game, but probably not actually do anything that messed up with it. And if they do, then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Yeah. Yeah. Think about the company it's coming from, who will probably add monetized skin of Osama bin Laden or something ridiculous. Dude, if they do that, I cannot even imagine the firestorm that would happen if they did that. Like, can you even imagine if they do that? And then it's like, yeah, and then there's a $40 Osama skin. Like, Jesus Christ almighty. I would like to think that everybody would become outraged at that point. But who knows? Like, I hope they don't do that. But then again, I guess you never know in the modern day. Yeah. Karmagot, thank you for the message over on Twitch. Hey Luke, any long-term critiques in the works at the moment? Missed them on YouTube. Yes, actually. I am working on one right now. It's actually what I'll probably be doing when the stream is over. And my guess is that we will put it up at the end of June, early July. I've told you guys that, like, I like doing the critiques. I like deep diving into games, but now that I have 2 people working full time for me, it's kind of difficult to juggle when we do like a 3-hour, 4-hour video while also juggling all of the other stuff, because often that means that they have to be pushed into overworking and stuff, and it's just not fair to the whole team to do that. So I've been trying to break it down, figure out what lines up, how it could work. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to keep doing critiques. I think I found a way to make it work. My expectation is that we will probably launch, relaunch a Patreon around the same time, and everybody will get access to the critiques, don't get me wrong, but if you want like your name in the credits, and if you want to vote on the next game, patrons can do that. And so we'll do that to help pay the rest, like pay the team to help with it. But it should be good. It should be good. I canceled my Patreon like a couple years ago because there were some things I was not happy with how they were running it. But after connecting with them again a handful of weeks ago, it seems like all those frustrations have been resolved, which is very, very good to hear. So props to them. I'd sub to Patreon if you made one. Well, and I think it could be cool because my plan would be to have it so, you know, there's the tier where you just get to see it early. There's a tier where you get your name in the credits and you get to vote on the next critique and stuff like that. And then we would also do a tier where you get like an exclusive video each month where we could, like, I could film a studio tour. I could film a behind the scenes thing on the making of the critiques, or I could take you guys on, you know, an actual field trip where I can film going to like a nearby game store or something. There's all sorts of cool stuff we could do. And then like verbal shout outs in the critique, stuff like that. That could be cool. So, and with all that, it would just help I think subsidize the production, because the critiques don't really make any money, which is part of the reason it doesn't really make sense to spend weeks and weeks working on them while I have to pay 2 people who are working for me full time. But the Patreon should be able to help with that, without having to try to do like big sponsors in the middle of the critique videos. So I think it'll work well, you know. I think it'll work well. OnlyFans, yeah, we're doing that. So I'm on board with field trips. Yeah, well, and that's part of the idea behind getting some cameras and stuff. Like, we'll be using it in the at Summer Game Fest when we're there, but also like being able to just take it out on the go is going to be super, super handy. And the hope is that we can open it up to do a lot more varied videos through Luke Stevens Live, but also for that Patreon and all of that good stuff. So it should be good. That's my hope, at least. Foot pics confirmed. Damn right. Unrecord, are you hype? Graphics game look out of this world. Yeah, I think it looks really good in videos. I'm not sure how good it'll feel to play, because it like the shaky camera looks good because it looks like an actual GoPro footage or an actual like body cam footage, but I don't know if that translates well to playing as like a first person shooter. It might just make you viciously motion sick. You know, like, I don't know. You're getting flown out? Yeah. There's a handful of other things I'll be doing that I can't talk about yet, but yeah. I'm going out there for a lot. We're not just doing Summer Game Fest. We've got a handful of other things going on that I will share in due time, but yeah, we're getting there. I'm surprised wait, where was it? Oh, Giraffe, your critiques are your biggest videos. I'm surprised they're unprofitable. Well, it's just, in order to figure out profitability, you have to know what the costs are. And when you think of like how much time goes into like actually recording the footage we need, doing the scripting, the outlining, recording, and then paying Jacob and or Trevor to cut parts of it together while I'm also editing stuff together. It's not just the money that has to be paid out to pay their salaries basically while they're doing that, but it's also, you got to factor in the money that's lost by not doing other videos we could be doing during that time. Like, there's a lot of reasons why it hasn't really made sense to do more than like one a year. And I think a Patreon just helps smooth it over. It's like, okay, we have this revenue that comes in that smooths it out so we can work on it. And if I upload one less video, that's like one less I tried in the month because we're working on this other stuff, that's okay. Like, it's not gonna break the bank or anything. It'll be okay. So that's my hope. And this first critique we're working on is going to be no doubt a big boy, and my expectation is that Jacob will be editing it for most of June, and then after that we'll be launching the Patreon, and then you guys will get to vote on the next one, which should be good. So anyway, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Kinomansky, it's funny how Asmongold was hyped about Space Marine 2 but didn't complain about the different editions. Oh, did he not complain about different editions? I didn't even I didn't see his look at it, so I don't know if he did or didn't complain about the different editions. My impression though of a lot of content creators is that if Ubisoft does X, they will freak out about it. If another company does it but the game looks good, people just happen to forget about that stance they were on. Again, I don't know if that was Asmongold or not. And when I say that, I'm not thinking of Asmongold. I'm thinking of another creator I won't bother mentioning. But you know the types, the rage baiters who freak out about all, like, a couple of companies doing it, but then the second that they're the company that they're a fanboy of, they forget about it pretty quickly. And I'm not saying that Ubisoft doesn't deserve the backlash for a lot of this stuff. I'm saying everybody deserves the backlash, but all of a sudden people shut up real quick. Like, a content creator will post a video about how great Fallout 76 is in 2024 and then just not say anything about Fallout First, which is a $100 a year subscription that has actual gameplay altering stuff in a live service game, not even a single player game, a live service game where there's competitive play. And it's like, you should be freaking out about that as well. If you're going to freak out about Ubisoft, fair. I think I've been complaining about their pricing models and XP boosts and stuff for years. I've been mentioning, you guys know, you've watched the critiques and stuff. I did a 3-hour one on Valhalla. Like, I've been screaming from the rooftops about this stuff for a long time. And I think we can all be on the same page with it. But you should also be consistent with everything else as well. Otherwise, I just think you're rage baiting, you know? I just think you're rage baiting, which I think a lot of people are, because they happen to forget to complain about some of the other companies the second that they release a trailer for a game they think looks cool. Oh yes, I'm sorry, I mean Valhalla.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
That poor guy, he will never live it down. I don't even remember who it was at this point, but it's so iconic as a line. We're never gonna let it die. Okay, let me catch up on these and then we'll look at this trailer for Space Marine 2. Are you gonna play Dragon Ball Z Sparking Zero? I don't think so. Nothing against it. I've never really been into Dragon Ball. Never got into it. But yeah, I also just don't know much about it. But yeah, thank you for the 2. I wish I had more to say about it. I just don't really know much about Dragon Ball. Let's see. I saw that one from Judson. Fresh Killer. I saw that one. Okay. Okay. Yes, we saw that. Okay. Let's do it. Oh, sorry. How could I have forgotten? Hold on. New segment. So, Space Marine 2 official PvE co-op mode gameplay reveal trailer. Part of Skulls 2024. This was like their big marketing push where they're doing like all of the Warhammer related games on Steam or on sale. It's like a huge thing. If you guys don't know, I'm actually really into Warhammer. I actually just got my buddy Caleb picked it up for me. But I just got my Orc Codex for Du Bois. Just got it. I play the tabletop. I've shown you guys models before that I have as part of my like collection and stuff. Because I play Warhammer 40k. We play the tabletop battle, whatever you'd call it. We have a wonderful time with it. Oh yeah, Shalaxy. Shalaxy will make you feel chillaxed. Look at that. Look at that. Oh wait, hold on. Look at that. Say. Ooh, Shalaxy. She's like every gender, every sexuality is combined in her. She's like a whole thing. Great Unclean One. Ooh, baby. I like the little ones that are like crushed underneath his belly. Focus, damn you. There you go. See, like little one crushed under him. It's really good. So I'm big into Warhammer. I like it, and this is an actual live service game that, well, not really live service. It's complicated. So the original Space Marine had single player, and it also had multiplayer. It was like one of those old school games and shooters that had multiple different layers to it. And prior to this trailer, we thought Space Marine 2 was probably, hopefully, something similar, but it was just unclear. However, with this trailer, we now know it's going to have the single player campaign and it's going to have multiplayer stuff, and it looks pretty solid. This was originally slated for release at sometime in 2023, I believe. And then they delayed it. And it's funny because like summer of last year, I remember reaching out to them, and it was supposed to release relatively soon. And I reached out to the publisher, and I was like, hey, can I get on the review list for this? I'd love to cover the game because I'm a fan of Warhammer. And they, at the time, the game was supposed to be coming out soon, but they were like, Oh yeah, when the time comes, we'll make sure to hook you up with that eventually. And the way that they were describing it was like, it's going to be in a while. So I think they knew they were going to have to delay it pretty heavily. And they ended up doing that. They delayed it by basically a year. But now we're actually seeing the trailer for the multiplayer stuff, and it looks like they've actually got something special on their hands.
We kill it. We break the synaptic connection.
They'd scatter like rats.
And if you're wrong, if it's not there, I cannot afford to throw men after a hunch. Give me 2 squads. 3 Space Marines. That's all I can spare. Brief them immediately.
Approaching drone zone.
Talassa, we are almost there. What is your status?
Drop complete. Moving to objective.
Acknowledged. Proceeding to relay.
Talassa on the march to take that Hive tyrant's head.
Maintain Vox reports.
Clear that wall-climbing scum! Death to all Xenos! Now we end this. I have been dying to carve up some Xenos.
Bomb is in place, Command. We can make it. Keep going.
Die!
The lights will guide us, brothers.
Going to kill you soon enough, demon! Hold fast, brother! Withstand the heat and keep moving!
I mean, come on, right? Come on. That's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. And then they show like the multiple editions and stuff. And there are, honestly, there's like a shocking number of editions. Do they have the link to it? No, I'm going to have to look it up. Space Marine 2. They have like a lot. The graph they released was like very confusing. Open it up. More info, maybe? Or was that it? Show more. Where's the graph? Maybe I'm gonna have to pull up the their like Twitter posts breaking down the different editions and everything. I think I will. Please hold, let me grab it. Professional streamer here, don't worry. Probably Focus Entertainment. Boo. Let's see, where's the graph, the chart, as it were. Ooh, they're doing vinyl stuff for Shipbreaker. That's cool. Skulls, trailer. Here it is. So, this is what I was looking for. So, they have the game, the pre-order bonus, McCraggie's Chosen DLC, whatever that means. Pre-order bonus, 3-day early unlock. Again, gold edition. You pre-order it, you get early unlock. Booyah. Season pass, get all the DLC included. Makes sense. And then the Ultramarines Champion Pack, whatever that means. Probably just special cosmetics and stuff. And then they expanded it even more with this, so you can see everything that's there. And now they say 4-day early unlock, so I guess it's even, yeah, up to 4 days early. So up to 4 days early, it'll do that. So all of this to say, it looks, you know, tons of different editions, tons of different stuff, and people are pretty stoked on it because the game looks really solid. And like the question you guys asked in the outset when it was like, oh, isn't it interesting how some of these people that like bashed Ubisoft all of a sudden get real quiet about the multiple editions when the game looks really good and they're interested in it. It's like, yeah, I think we're all guilty of that though. Like we all complain and are like, oh, absolutely, I will not support a game that launches above full price. Like it's above $70. And then GTA 6 is going to come out at $100 a pop, and we're all going to get real quiet real quickly, because that's just how it tends to work, unfortunately. We all turn into hypocrites the second we see something we like. But that being said, I think graphically the game looks really, really good. It seems like they've done a lot of work here. In terms of gore, they are not holding back. Like blood, yes. That's going to be the toggle. It's like blood effects, on or off. It's just 100% or 0%. It looks like the customization is pretty solid. There's like a skill tree for all different abilities and stuff. It's pretty vast with all sorts of level scaling. So it looks like each class of Space Marine you will level up separately, which adds a lot of long-term growth, which is good to see, a reason to continue playing. The Bulwark, basically just the tanky boy. And the energy swords, all the different weapons. You can see different XP for individual weapons. So as you level up the weapons, you gain different attachments and things for them. And you work your way up, fighting hordes and hordes and hordes. And then this right here, where is it? Back just a tad. This right here is a 1,000 Suns, probably Rubric Marine, I think is what he looks like to me. Not quite a Terminator. Terminators usually have kind of a hood over them. I might actually have one I could show you. So like I'm a big fan of these guys, of 1,000 Suns, because they look like ancient Egypt themed Space Marines, which is basically what they are. You can see my these were some of the first things I ever painted, some of the first models I ever painted, and so they look like it. I also tried to get really clever with some of the painting schemes and stuff, and it did not work. Oh, a bunch of these are not even finished. But I got Zangors, little Zangors. Focus. There you go. Oh, wait, no, not quite. I gotta move my head out of the frame and then it focuses. Like little Zangors, and then I've got these Marines, which is basically what these guys are, that you see on screen here. And it'll bug me killing them because, again, they're my favorite army. I just like them because it's all Egypt themed, but I can forgive it. I'll get past it. I'll be okay, guys. It's okay. Oh, look, Luke shouting from distance again. Hell yeah, professional streamer again. So this all looks great. And then what was the other thing that caught my eye? Oh yeah, smashing him with a hammer again. So it looks like you're going to be fighting a lot of 1,000 Suns. So I'm glad that they're getting some representation. That's good to see. It also looks like there's going to be a melee class because they show the guy swinging a hammer. So it looks like there's going to be a class of melee soldiers, which is going to be, that's going to be pretty cool. Full body destruction, everything. Very goopy. Now, the one thing, having tried the original, that I would be worried about with this game is enemy variety, arena variety, and just overall gameplay variety. You can see this right here. This is a Hellbrute. I actually have a Hellbrute. I don't think he's painted. I'll grab it anyways. Get ready for me to shout from across the room. Okay. Oh, he's half painted. I did the blue. I haven't done anything else on him. But these Hellbrutes, they got the big ass hammer and then the guns and stuff. But usually they have one big hammer on one side. That's this guy you see on screen now. And so they're actual models and enemies from the tabletop RPG, which is super cool. And this gets me excited because it suggests that there's going to be kind of boss fights within the runs or within the missions. So maybe this is the capstone on the mission. This is the last thing you do is fight the big Hellbrute or something, which is super cool. But it just looks really solid. It looks graphically impressive. It looks polished, which is rare nowadays. And so I think this could be something really special. I think this could do really, really well. They need it to be polished. They need there to be content. But as long as they do that and can maintain this quality level, I think this could be the next Helldivers pretty easily. It could be the next thing that people just obsess over and that gets memed on and that people can't stop playing. Especially hearing that it has a single player and multiplayer, that's going to go a long way for a lot of people, I think. So I also think they know that, which is why, oh, I don't have one of these. These are like the Helldrakes, and this also looks to be a Thousand Suns one. So these are like flying robot bird things. They're pretty trippy. But I get the impression that they know what they have on their hands and that they know this is something to really follow through on, which is why they've delayed it and taken their time, given them the resources to do it. Now, the devs, Saber, they aren't like the most wildly accomplished studio. Like they do some stuff really, really well. Quiet Place, Jurassic Park Survival, Expeditions, Evil Dead the Game, World War Z Aftermath, SnowRunner. Like they're a huge studio. They have like 2,000 employees or 1,300. Yeah, 1,300 employees. So they have, it's a big team. It's a big team, and they work on a lot of big stuff, but they don't typically do like big critically acclaimed stuff. But this actually looks like it could be a pretty successful game if they were to actually deliver on the core promises. And I mean, they're offering multiple editions because every game nowadays does this. I still don't think anybody should ever pre-order a game. Chances are reviews and previews and stuff will drop well before the deadline for this early access. So you should be able to know whether this game is going to be good before you go about pre-ordering it and stuff. So time will tell. I already ordered the statue because the statue as a Warhammer fan just looks really good and it will fit nicely on my shelf. So I'm basically just getting it for the statue, honestly, but there's that. Let me see this. Let me catch one of these. Judson, they did World War Z. I'm sure it's going to be like that, more advanced, more variety of enemies. Pretty excited about it. Remember, no pre-order. Yeah, as always, don't give them money until you know what you're getting. Like at this point, we've seen trailers that show gameplay, but nobody's actually tried the game to see how it ties together. Because with these types of games, you just never know. You could be seeing the gameplay and it looks really, really good, and then you actually like get your hands on it. It's like, oh, this just doesn't really feel that good. The movement's really clunky. Animations are weird. Controls weird. The aim's off. Like there could be any number of weird things. Yeah. Yeah. Given a Plague Tale's dev's resume, I can confidently say you can rarely trust it on what a studio can do. Just me, though. Oh, you mean because Asobo Studio, they also did like Microsoft Flight Simulator, that them doing Plague Tale kind of came out of nowhere? Yeah, Asobo is actually one of the studios that needs a lot more love. They are slept on in the industry. Like they did Flight Simulator, which already is freakishly impressive. But then they also did Plague Tale, which is phenomenal. Plague Tale Requiem is fantastic. So I agree. You can't always determine exactly what they are capable of or are not capable of based on that. But it also will usually give you a pretty good idea of the ballpark of the scope and scale they're capable of. What it seems to me is that Space Marine 2 is a game they feel like they have something special on their hands with, and I think they're giving them extra time, extra resources to really follow through on it. So, sup, Steve? Okay, let's do this real quick. Redbox, thank you for resubbing at tier 1. Thank you. Hello, Luke. Hope you're doing well. Oh, I'm always doing well. I'm always doing well, my friend. Saw a video and a guy was asked, how you doing? And he says, oh, I'm doing great. Never had a bad day in my life. And I understand it. Like he's trying to be positive and optimistic. Like, yeah, I'm happy to be alive. I'm good to go. But I'm like, you've probably had a bad day in your life. You know, like I know you're just trying to be upbeat and positive, but also like, I think you're lying if you're saying you've never had a bad day. Like you're allowed to have a bad day. there's always going to be somebody who had a worse day, no doubt, but that's not the question. It was just, did you have a good day or a bad day? Oh yeah, I've had a bad day before. That's okay. It's okay to have a bad day every once in a while. It's okay. John Gray, I pre-order games to make sure I get the Game Bob released because never little cost will pop up in life. I pre-order games to make sure I get the Game Bob released because never little cost will pop up in life. I'm not sure what you mean. It will be incredible to see Sobo being bought by Microsoft, not selling 30 million units in a good game, being closed soon after. Yeah, I mean, that's how it goes. That's how it goes, man. That's just, yeah. Okay, let's see this. I got news segment. I got a DM on Twitter/X where somebody was asking me, hey, Luke, I'm just wondering if you think we're in the middle of a game crash, you know, akin to like the 1980s and what happened there. Because it seems like a lot of AAA games are releasing really in a poor state. Games that have tons of money relying on them are flopping. Studios are closing. There's mass layoffs. It seems like something very wrong is going on. And I thought it was an interesting question because, I mean, you see big games like AC Shadows, for example, that are shown off and have all sorts of different editions. And I know some, like we just talked about, some YouTubers will point to this and be like, wow, they finally crossed the line. Guys, like every big studio has been doing this for years. Are you just now realizing? Like, where have you been? Like, the deluxe edition of Madden is $100. And it's the same game as every other. And they're selling like $150 microtransaction within the game. Like, what are you talking about? This has always been a thing. Why are we just now getting upset about it? It drives me crazy. Other companies like EA are looking at adding ads into games. Andrew Wilson, the CEO of EA, says we have teams internally in the company right now investigating integrating ads into the games that they have. Like, without a doubt, the industry is pushing for more revenue. That's not a doubt. Okay, that's not a doubt. Everybody can see that. Quality standards, we've also gotten a lot of flops. Now, I've been questioning this. I was like, somebody asked, why do you think we've been having so many flops recently? And I was like, have we actually had more flops than usual? Yes, we'll get something like a Forspoken, for example. And Forspoken is just like laughably cringe, you know, really cringe. But like, we've also had a lot of really crappy games in years past, you know, like a lot. Oh no, she turned it sideways. Oh, watch out. You know, like, we've gotten a lot of really bad games. Is it disproportional now? And I think the answer is no. We've always had bad games. I think the bad games we're getting now are just much more visible. Because even games like Gollum, in years past, a game like Gollum would have released and would have been quickly forgotten and abandoned and moved on from. Like, I don't think anybody would have really talked about it. It just would have been forgotten. Oh yeah, this thing. But nowadays it's super visible. The clips go viral on TikTok, on Twitch, on YouTube Shorts, everything. I think that's a big factor in it. So my perspective, and I've tried to go back and like count up big flops and everything and be like, okay, well, in 2023, how many catastrophically bad games did we have? And then I go back to 2015 and I try to count up how many terrible games we have. Because even when you go back to like worst games of, I don't know, let's just pick a random year, 2016. If we go back to that and it's like a collection of the charts, Ghostbusters, I didn't even realize that. Mighty Number 9, Pokemon Go. Are these the worst? Pokemon Go ended up being big. Back in 1995. Hyrule Warriors Legends. I think that one was super broken. No Man's Sky, also super broken. It's funny. Some of these have made turnarounds. Battleborn, that's right. Homefront, Revolution, disappointed some people. Recourse, Star Fox Zero, Mirror's Edge, Catalyst, Mafia 3, also super broken. Like, you look back at a lot of these games, and it's like, oh yeah, there were a lot of flops and crashes during that year. If we go back here, worst games of like 2013? 2013 was a decent year, wasn't it? North Star Ken's Rage. I don't remember that. Final Fast and Furious. Oh yeah, well of course that sucked. Girl Fight. No way. Is Girl Fight? That's a game? Okay. Knack. Biggest and best launch titles, but it turned out to be a linear, unimpressive Ratchet and Clank X snooze fest. Soul Sacrifice, Star Trek, Barbie Dreamhouse Party. Okay, I've got to see this game. Barbie Dreamhouse Party game. Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
They're all very spacious, even the bathroom, which has a huge open area in the middle. But one thing is noticeably missing, which is the toilet. I guess it's possible that it's hidden away with the wardrobe, which is accessible in every room in the right.
Dude, it's giving me a migraine just looking at it. So the point is with a lot of this stuff is that there's a lot of games that have released for years and years and years that lacked quality. Typically those games would release and be forgotten. Like a lot of these games on this list, we've just kind of forgotten about or never heard of. Others made comebacks, but they started really rough, like a No Man's Sky. Now it's come back, but back in 2016, it was crucified, you know? So I don't feel like we have disproportionately more terrible games. I just feel they're much more visible and memeable now than ever. So that's part of it. No doubt we've had, you know, big AAA releases that are catastrophic failures, you know, Suicide Squad being one. But like we've also had AAA sized games that flop and are terrible and way worse than promised in years past. Again, No Man's Sky, when it launched, everybody was like, wow, Sony really hyped this game up. How did it end up being this bad? And then it ended up being a total disaster. Or something like Mass Effect Andromeda. You know, if we go back a handful of years, like at some point you've got to get the cutoff and you've got to be able to say, okay, this is when the market started crashing, or this is when big games started flopping, or this or that. But it's kind of hard to pinpoint that because there's always been big AAA games that flop or were rushed out or this or that. And I think you're right. Every few years, people are saying, oh, well, the games industry is collapsing. Everything's dying. Game over, Red Rover, you know, everything's terrible. But having said that, I do think something different is going on now that is special. Okay? So while we may have the same number of terrible games as we've always had, I do think something has changed. And that is something that's also affecting the movie industry as well. And it's a big problem that's affecting pretty much everything. Like, what's that? Furiosa. That movie that's just released. Oh, Paul Tassi wrote this article too. Paul's everywhere, dude. It's not shocking that Furiosa is struggling at the box office despite reviews. So Furiosa, if you don't know, it's like a new movie in the Mad Max universe. It's like a prequel is my understanding. Yeah, those who have seen Furiosa, Mad Max Saga may be wringing their hands that a movie that good is doing so poorly. Just a $25 million opening, but unfortunately it was not expected or exactly set up for success from the start. A few reasons though. And basically it just seems like it's a film that's not actually coming together. It's the worst like Memorial Day weekend launch of a film in like 29 years or something like that. It's just a total bummer compared to what they were expecting it to do. But I think that there's a handful of things that are happening in the films industry and then also what's happening in the games industry. Value has shifted. The perception of value shifted, and it's shifted because of streaming, because of TikTok and YouTube and streamers, and entertainment in general has shifted. What's verifiable is that people are kind of burnt out on just constant sequels and spin-offs and stuff like that. they're not going out and engaging with it anymore like they used to, and that's quantifiable. You can see it. Where Marvel used to be able to just put out anything and make $1 billion on it, now they're getting consistent flops when they put stuff out because people are just not really interested in it. And they can kind of see that these are just soulless, formulaic movies that are just being pumped out as quickly as they can be. And so people have started to disconnect with it. And in the games industry, it's a similar thing where people have started to disconnect from the constant cycle of sequels and are starting to get kind of frustrated by it. And like, can we get anything that's not just a remaster, remake, or like a quick sequel that's meant to just cash in on nostalgia and stuff? Like, can we just get something original and fresh? And it feels like a lot of these big entertainment companies in the gaming space and in the film space are spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars putting all of these chips on something like a Furiosa or something like a Suicide Squad, which on paper you would think would do really well. People love Mad Max. We'll make another Mad Max movie, put it out Memorial Day weekend, boom. We'll make $500 million or $1 billion. It'll do great. Or people love superhero movies. Let's just make 5 of them and release them next month together. We'll make billions. It'll be great. We used to be able to do that, and now it just doesn't really work. But something shifted. I think COVID accelerated it a bit when people were locked at home, but I think it was already going on before that. And that's just that people have started to burn out on that formulaic approach to entertainment. And I think it's because TikTok is extremely candid. Streaming is very, very, very candid. People like that genuine connection with entertainers, and Hollywood and corporate gaming is the antithesis of that. You know, they are the opposite of candid and intimate experiences between people. It's games made by committee, films made by committee, and they lack soul and interesting plot points, and it just doesn't really click. You know, it doesn't really click. People didn't change. It was the products. They started pushing agendas. I'm not so sure if that's the case. I mean, I do think there are or have been some instances where like films, TV, things like that have started certainly prioritizing preaching their various like political stances or whatever else above and beyond the entertainment value. And it's like, wait, we're supposed to make interesting characters, but this character slays, right? And then you snap with your fingers, like, and they thought that was going to be enough. So there certainly have been instances like that. Nobody's doubting that. But I also think that people have changed what they expect from these big companies. They don't want the same slop that they got served for a decade. Like they had their fill and now they're moving on. I mean, people point to Marvel all the time and they're like, oh, the Marvelification of entertainment, because we've seen this also in the gaming space where like every character needs to have the witty comeback and be like super, super cool. The example is always like the Forspoken dialogue. Like, you remember some of the dialogue when she's talking to the cuff? And she's like, wow, I just did magic. Wow, I'm so cool. I'm so badass. You remember this? Like, this is straight Marvel.
Did I just do that?
Well, oh, and here's that dialogue that went viral.
I did not just do that.
We did.
Let's just sit back and enjoy
I just move shit with my mind.
Perhaps our connection has somehow awoken some abilities.
Oh, I saw this clip on Twitter.
I just move shit with my mind. That is something I do now. I do magic, talk to sentient cuffs, kill jacked up beasts. You know what? I'll probably fly next.
Now you're just being ridiculous.
Oh, that's too far. Good to know there's a line.
If you could.
It's like because Chris Pratt did this in one movie, or because Paul Rudd did it goofily, or Ryan Reynolds while playing Deadpool. Now everybody feels like you should have characters that kind of play with the audience a little bit and are joking around a little bit. You know, it drives me a little crazy. So I think that there is a certain effect where this type of writing was assumed to be like, well, people liked it in this movie or when this actor did it. Let's have everybody do it now. And it's just so cringy. It just doesn't work. So I think there's stuff like that going on. But without a doubt, there's multiple layers of problems here. There's frustration. And as I've said before, perception is reality with this stuff. If the perception is among the gaming community that these companies are prioritizing like preaching or activism above entertainment value, that's what the studio has to deal with. Whether or not they're intentionally doing it or not, the problem is still there, right? It doesn't actually matter if they like were wringing their hands. Oh, we'll do this and we'll try to brainwash them by putting in all these characters and doing the woke to everybody. Like, even if they weren't doing that, it's still the problem they've got to fix, right? So it doesn't really matter if it was intentional or not. They've got to deal with it. And in the same way, the perception is that companies are prioritizing activism. They're prioritizing, monetization schemes. They're prioritizing all these other things above and beyond the quality of the actual experience. And then when you get a game that comes along and just seems to be a good game, people connect with it and people are really into it. Like we saw with, say, a Helldivers or a Baldur's Gate 3. Nobody really cared that much about how badass the characters were or how many times they'd stop and start snapping when the characters did something that slayed. I cannot believe I just said that. Nobody cared about that because the game was just good. That's that. Full stop. The game was good, so people enjoyed it and people bought it and were happy with it. And it seems like that's just been forgotten both in Hollywood and it's also been forgotten in the gaming space where it's like, oh, yeah. Because I think for a while in the mid-2010s, entertainment became very formulaic. And part of it was Marvel, I think. Part of it was like the onset of these huge franchises in gaming, for example, that blew up and that they could just announce a sequel to that would pop off and do really well. But things have shifted and changed, both intentionally and unintentionally. I think it's both the content and it's both the content and it's also that people have changed what they expect, because audiences do change and evolve over time. You go back and you look at some of the movies that released in like the 2004, 2005, 2006 era, and you're like, that was like a blockbuster hit, really? It's always like, huh, crazy, interesting, wild. Yeah, I bet the writers were so proud of themselves and felt so cool. Well, dude, I pointed this out before. Saints Row, probably just gameplay. The first hour of gameplay. Oh, Rad Brad has it. Okay, I pointed this out because like I look at some of this stuff. Let me just get to when they meet the friends. I look at this, and I say to myself, wow, this is a group of people I would never want to hang out with. Because, like, if you're going to show up wearing a fanny pack, strike one already. I'm not sure if I trust you if you wear a fanny pack. Strike two, you're indoors with your shirt off. Why? Is it hot in there? No, this guy's wearing a suit. Wrong camera. This is my this is my Lego camera. This guy's wearing a suit, so it can't be that hot in the room. And then beyond that, you're wearing headphones while just standing there. Like, what are you doing? What do you have against fanny packs? If you wear a fanny pack, I assume you're a very confident person. I just don't like fanny packs. It's not that complicated. I just don't really like fanny packs. But like, I just, every part of this guy is just a turn off. I'm like, okay, I'm good. She's fine, whatever. But when you start talking to all of these guys and they start, the wage slave, giving you crap because you have a job. Like, all of this is just so freaking cringy. When I first played it, I thought this was like a commentary on how stupid millennials and Gen Z were or are with how they hate work and then complain about being poor. And it's like, oh yeah, so that's kind of like the funny thing. And then I realized, no, they're being serious. This is supposed to be like a connection between the player and these characters. They're supposed to hear these characters complaining about student loans and then giving each other crap for having jobs and stuff. And you're supposed to be like, these guys are awesome. I want to spend all my time with them. But once I realized that this was being played straight, that they wanted this to be like a serious connection between player and character, that's when I realized we had a serious problem. Because you showed this to anybody, and they should be able to tell you, oh yeah, this is not going to go over well. This is going to be like, this is going to be roasted. And yet somehow they didn't do that. And by most accounts, it seems like they were genuinely surprised at the negative reception. Which, just pause and think about that for a second. How disconnected from the broader like culture of the gaming sphere would you have to be to think that gamers would see this and go, slay queen? How disconnected would you have to be? You know? It's just cringe. It's just cringe. Like, just let me play the dialogue and remember that this was the best they had. Let me unmute it first.
It's supposed to be. Got stiffed on my bonus today.
Dude, what the fuck?
I played a little fast and loose on the job, and, well, my CEO wasn't a fan.
You gotta be kidding me.
Swear to God, this lady walked right off the set of an 80s action movie. I was half expecting her to call me Rook and threaten to take my badge.
Are we gonna make rent?
We'll make rent. We just gotta be a little more creative.
Last time we got creative, I got stabbed 3 times.
Hey, it would have been 4 times if Nina and I hadn't shown up.
It would have been 0 times if you were on time.
This is true. Look, this is really not a big deal. We just knock off a payday loan place. No one gives a shit if people rob those bastards.
You have a job now. You could actually just take the loan.
Eli, I don't do business with morally bankrupt companies.
You worked for Marshall.
Morally bankrupt companies. So let's rob them. It's just so funny, dude. It's like, yes, I'm morally superior. Yes, I work for a military contracting company that kills people. Yes, we would technically be robbing them, but it's okay. You know, it's just like, huh. Luke, how would you feel if all the characters were wearing Crocs? Depends on if they're socks as well. Just Crocs? Okay. If you're wearing socks and Crocs and you think it's like formal attire, you know? Ooh. So anyway, with all this stuff though, I think that there is something where there's a lack of like connection with it. And more than anything, what people just at their core don't like is they don't like feeling lectured to, and they don't like it when companies have contempt for them. Shocker, right? And you know, it's like all those examples of the celebrities that will say like, well, if you don't like it, don't come see my movie. And then the audience doesn't see the movie and the movie flops. It's like, yeah, because you didn't want me there, so I didn't go and see it. Same thing with this, is it's like people were giving Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League crap because of character designs and stuff. And right now, like, because it's been data mined, I won't show it because it's still coming out. It's not like the game's been canned or anything. But if you want to find it, you can find it. The pictures of the next playable character have leaked for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And let's just say people were quite disappointed by the character design. Quite disappointed. Not only was it an odd choice as a character to go that route compared to the layup of the other option, but yeah, if you want to Google it, you can find it. Just Suicide Squad next playable character leak or whatever. That being said, though, people saw that and people have been like generally frustrated. They saw the design of Joker and were really frustrated by it. I showed in my video, which shout out to everybody. It's the top search result when you search Suicide Squad, which is kind of funny. I showed the like side by side. This is their like, you can't even make it up. This is their Titan Formula Joker skin. And this is how he actually appeared in a game a decade ago. Like, some people said some pretty nasty things about it, but that I won't repeat here. But people were like, this is like a just really weird, like Jared Leto-esque attempted sexy joke. Like, what are we doing? I don't understand it. But we're supposed to like look at it and start cheering. And it's like, again, you show this to anybody before launch, and I think they could have told you that this was going to be received poorly. And yet they just put it out, and then they're really surprised when the reception's poor. And I think a lot of it is that they just don't, like, honestly, they're out of touch with their actual fans. And I think that's the biggest problem at the core of all of this, is simply that a lot of these big studios either have disdain for their actual community and fan base, or they are so out of touch with that community and fan base that they don't know, like, they don't actually know what they need to do to win them over. You know? Because again, so many of these games, it's like, if you talk to anybody, you would think they would have been able to point out that this doesn't make sense, that this is a bad idea. Like, it just, but they didn't. And then they release it and they're genuinely shocked. It's the same thing with Forspoken, where that game comes out and like some of the writers were genuinely shocked that the reception was so bad, that people were so pissed off about it and were mocking it so incessantly. And it's like, yeah, because people don't talk that way. Like, they're at an arraignment and the judge for some reason lets her go. But in the process of arguing it, she's like, no, I have a bright future. I have good grades. Like, all the exposition in the world all at once. I actually bookmarked something. Let me see. Stream topics. Terminal, no. Here, refresh. Sync this notebook now. Let's see. It was a clip from a Neil Breen movie, and it was precious. I don't think it actually... Damn it. I don't think it actually saved. Let me see if I can find it. Neil... If you guys don't know Neil Breen. Neil Breen... and it was like exposition. Nope. Neil Breen, if you don't know him, he's like a filmmaker that does some of the most like baffling movies, where he films himself and like puts the stuff out, and it's just shockingly terrible.
My God.
Like, what are we... Like, this is the level of cinematic quality we're getting from a lot of these like AAA $200 million movie or games. Like, you know.
I'm not ready for this.
Yeah, that's about Forspoken levels. That's about right. That's about right. I'm not ready for this. It's why I get excited when I hear that like a company or a studio is willing to get outside perspectives. Like I've done work with companies over the years where they will like come in and hire me and or other YouTubers to look at games and offer our feedback ahead of time. And they're like, just tell us what you think. Like, be as harsh or as nice as you want Just come out and tell us what you think. What do you think the audience out there will say when they see this? And I try to be very upfront and honest with it, but at least they are listening. At least they're open to it. And a lot of companies don't. They just don't actually care, you know? Do they actually listen? Out of the times I've done it, there was one time where they did make a pretty substantial change. Most of the time, they're like, okay. You can tell it was probably like one member of the like executive team was like, we should bring in outsiders to look at the game and offer feedback. And like, that's it. You know, like, I'm not saying they should make total changes based on what a few YouTubers say, but I'm like, if you bring in 5 to 10 YouTubers or streamers and they all cover games for a living and they all agree on like one point that's bad, you should probably seriously consider changing that, you know? Like, I'm not saying they should be like, oh, well, we showed this game footage to Asmongold and he didn't like that there wasn't a lot of grind. He wanted more grind. And then they change everything about it. It's like, okay, that was probably a bad choice. But if you show it to 10 creators or 10 gamers and they all tell you the same thing, that's probably a red flag, you know? Probably a red flag. KAKG, thank you for the 5. Love from Dog. Much love to you as well. Judson, thank you for the 5. I think the problem they showing the message front and center, yelling to game audiences instead of doing background and subtle hints. I get the impression that a lot of game writers think that audiences are stupider than they are and that they need more hand holding. Gamers are smart. Gamers are very, very capable. Very, very capable. You just have to like trust them to figure it out. Oh my God. I just saw Sweet Baby Freeze. I don't know what Clownfish TV is, but it's showing up in my recommended feed. But like that character design, if you put that together, like seriously, who would have thought that would be received well by the broader gaming community? Like, I don't know. That's Mr. Freeze's daughter. That's the next playable character. Yeah. Instead of doing just Mr. Freeze, they decided to do something different. Okay. Yeah, it's like you had a layup there. You had an easy clap. Easy one. But you chose not that. And like, again, if they asked literally anyone else, they would have told you that this was going to be received badly. But they just didn't. Like, it's just crazy.
Judson.
Yeah, I just read that one off, Judson. Thank you again, Judson. I'm seriously baffled. Yeah, it's just, there is subverting expectations. And then there's that. Like, you have X that everyone expects. So subverting it might be like, ooh, it's X plus Y, and it's awesome. It equals happiness. But instead of X, they could just straight up deliver X, and people would probably be like, okay. Okay. But instead of this, they choose to go, let's do squiggle, and then plus I don't even know how to draw it. Let's do turd. And, you know, it's a stinky turd. It looks like a wizard's hat. And then this equals views. You know, on the one hand, this is something I need clipped out of context. That's the sorting hat. It does actually look like a sorting hat. Yeah, and then this, we're going to take red squiggle times red squiggle, and then they expect it to equal money. Maybe that's the problem with all these companies. They ask Terrence Howard to do the math on whether like the statistic analysis will make sense for these products. All of this to say, they could very easily just deliver X and be successful. Do Mr. Freeze, people will be generally happy. Okay, it's a cool character, cool moves, whatever. And then you could really subvert expectations, do Mr. Freeze, but maybe you actually hired Arnold Schwarzenegger to do the voice. You actually spent millions to get him to do the voice like in the 90s movies. And that will go meme worthy. It'll pop off, be hugely successful. People will love it. People will eat it up. Imagine if they did that. Imagine if they announced Mr. Freeze as the next playable character and Arnold Schwarzenegger voices him. It's going to be awesome. People would lose their minds, right? Instead of doing any of this, they decide what is objectively worse than Mr. Freeze. An unknown character nobody's really ever heard of in the form of his daughter that is represented by squiggly line. And then let's also design the character in a way where thematically maybe it's very appropriate, where she actually looks like a walking refrigerator. Then that will lead us to lots of views, which is true, but they expected it to lead them by multiplying it by itself using some teriology. It was going to lead to massive success of the game because people would be so stoked on it. It just doesn't make any sense, especially when they could ask literally anybody and they could tell you, oh no, these views you're getting, yeah, that'll go viral when that's really, yeah, that people are going to talk about that. But it's going to go viral for all of the wrong reasons. It's going to be, look how out of touch they are. Look how laughably stupid this is. Nobody's going to be re-downloading the game or buying it for $70 to play as like the daughter of Mr. Free, the daughter of the character they actually wanted to play as. Just no part of it makes any sense at all. And it makes you wonder, like, how did we get here? How did we get here? Did we get here because they thought, honestly, gamers would like it? Because as far as I can tell, there's a couple of options. Option A is that they were just honestly like mistaken and they thought that gamers would actually like it. So in that case, I think they would just be out of touch, right? Out of touch. Ran out of room. So option A is that they're out of touch. They thought gamers would actually look at that design for the character after all the troubles and everything that the game had before it even launched. They thought gamers would be really stoked on it and it would be super successful. In which case, they're just out of touch if they thought that, because anybody could have told them that wouldn't be the case. Option B is that they knew it wouldn't be received well and they didn't care, which is almost worse. Because at least here, they thought they were delivering something that their audience would like. In this case, they actually are putting something together they know a lot of people are going to be upset by or pissed off about. Don't care. Don't care. At least they were trying with option A. With option B, they have active contempt for their own fan base and audience, which I think is the broader feeling. Like, there's no way they are so out of touch they thought that was going to be received well. There is no way. I don't buy that for a second. What I'm guessing is that they thought, ooh, that slays. And anybody upset about it is just like a jerk or something. Banana thinks it's a combination of A and B. So Banana, do you, I appreciate you playing devil's advocate. Do you think like do you think they're out of touch in the sense they didn't think the blowback would be that bad? Or do you think they thought that maybe it was just a very vocal, tiny minority of people? Because honestly, like if we go over to the subreddit, which granted is currently not the best representation because the subreddit has pretty much imploded at this point. Like even the people still stoked about it are just showing glitches and stuff. That's funny. Yeah. Looks like they've cleared out all of references to it. Which fair. I mean, it's data mined. I think that's fair. Yeah, they've scrubbed all references to it. Fair enough. I get it. It's leaked. They don't want to show it, so I understand, but still. Let's see, Banana. I think they're out of touch for what people want, but also don't care if it has negative response as long as it makes money. Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think when I say don't care, I specifically mean that they knew that the discourse and the response from their own community would be highly negative, which, I mean, already it has been. They've had to like nuke the sub for any references of it. That sub hates you. Oh yeah, dude, you're telling me. Honestly, some of the posts were pretty funny. Before the game launched, people were like, yeah, Luke's going to be eating his words when the game comes out and he sees how awesome it is. It's a little funny. It's a little funny, honestly. I just think like, however we spin it, like they're out of touch in the sense that to get this game to reach mainstream appeal and popularity, they have to do something very different. Very, very different. But instead of like trying to alter it and give fans like what they really wanted, which are like those fun references, give them the Mr. Freeze with Arnold Schwarzenegger or something fun like that as a crossover, or do a whole season around the Riddler and the Riddler is played by Nick Cage or something. Like you could do all sorts of crazy fun stuff with how much money they've spent on marketing this game. They could have done something really, really novel and interesting, but instead they thought that they could just make these Overwatch-esque characters and expect it to just make magic money. And it's just, it doesn't work. The Hellblade 2 Reddit is upset with you, Luke. Oh, really? Oh, I'm just pissing off everybody on Reddit. I did notice somebody posted the like review to a subreddit, and then there was like a flood of like 100 or so dislikes on the video within like 5 or 10 minutes. It was pretty funny. I was like, oh, that's dead giveaway. I was like, I stand by everything I said in that game or in that video. Stand by it all. People feel free to disagree. Like that's totally fine. But yeah, I found it very, very underwhelming. But anyway, with all this, I've tried to figure out how this could not just go wrong initially, because at the outset, okay, Suicide Squad is a live service game. People didn't really want a live service game. I get it. So maybe that's why, you know, they're doing their best, but they're just fighting an uphill battle. But then you're like, but they keep making persistently worse decisions. Like just when they could dig themselves out of the trench a little bit, they double down on the worst parts of it. And then they act like insulted that people are dissatisfied with it. It's like, okay, well now I don't feel so bad for you, you know? If the subreddit is gaming circle jerks, you can ignore it. Oh man. Well, I Nikki was asking me because at one point, I think it was after Starfield. Because the Starfield subreddit was super pissed off at me in the lead up to the game. Like super, super pissed off. Because they were saying stuff like, you know, Luke's calling out these red flags. They're not even red flags. If anything, they're features. The game looks amazing. This is going to be the best game of the year. Baldur's Gate ain't got nothing on this, blah, blah, blah. And then we got the game and it was like, oh, okay, maybe some of that stuff he pointed out was fair. And maybe some of this was foreseeable and we could have known that this was going to be a problem. But like prior to that, the subreddit was very, very upset with me. And Nikki was like, is it really that bad? And so Nikki pulled it up on her phone. She's like, oh yeah, they really don't like you. I was like, yeah, no, I don't read it. I don't look at it. Cause like, I say what I say. I think what I think. And sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I'm right. But like subreddits almost by design create little echo chambers of people that are just fulfilling the hype cycle and are just pumping each other up. And it can create communities that are just straight up delusional. Like, and it's kind of scary when you look at it. So I just, if you want to keep your mental health intact, just don't ever look on Reddit, especially if they're posting about you. Just never do it. It's just bad for you. It's like somebody asked me, how'd you deal with the blowback of your thoughts on Starfield when eventually, you know, you put your video out, or the game came out and you put out your review and everything. And somebody in chat was like, how did you deal with the negativity and the hate leading up to the game before you were kind of vindicated on it? I was like, honestly, maybe I should have been more aware of it. I didn't feel much of it, like, because it's all isolated in those communities. I'm not going and trying to rub shoulders with Starfield fanboys. Like, I wasn't ever trying to do that. Like, I get it. They're pissed that they feel like I maybe was calling attention to some of the problems. But at the end of the day, I'm calling attention to the problems, and guess who's going to have more of an impact on whether the problems are fixed? The people that are just patting Bethesda on the back and acting like everything's fine, or the guy that's calling them out for it? Like, you don't do them any favors by pretending problems don't exist. You know, that's what really drives me the most crazy, is like the denial of problems or issues with games doesn't fix them, doesn't make them better. And it certainly doesn't make the studio better. My fear with Starfield, let me pull this up. Somebody's going to clip that. Luke's scared of Starfield, confirmed. Luke's Starfield phobic. Todd Howard. Let me see. Yeah, this is a great example. News segment. Yes, everyone, I'm still talking about Starfield because it came up and I'm going to refer to this. Okay, we're going to deal with it. In my defense, Todd is still talking about it too, so it's okay. In this interview that Todd did with Kind of Funny Games, he referenced something that I think is the biggest red flag and biggest concerning thing with all of BGS. And this is why I've said so many times that, like, hyping up games doesn't actually help the game. It doesn't help the studio, certainly. And after the game releases, if there were problems or shortcomings, pretending like they're not that bad, or pretending like, oh, well, we'll fix them eventually. That doesn't help anything. You know, it just doesn't help anything. Exactly, Tristan. Sugarcoating has never fixed anything. It might help when you're like talking to like a toddler and you're like, oh yeah, well, you know, the goldfish went to a farm. That's why we flushed it down the toilet, to go down to the toilet farm where he's going to live happily ever after. You're sugarcoating it, twisting it, making it something different because you don't want to hurt their feelings or make them sad. When we're talking about evaluating a product that you're paying money for, what are you doing? What are you doing? Norcat's our resident like troll in chat, and it's very entertaining. He's got some really funny stuff. But Norcat just said, that's just your opinion, Luke. My opinion is that Starfield is objectively good. Master level troll. My opinion is that it's objectively good. I love it. So sorry that just, I saw that and then I just thought it was funny. But with that said, you can see that same attitude reflected in the response from the devs if they're given a pass on it. And BGS for years has been given a pass. There's times, like I remember seeing videos back in like 2014 and 15 in the lead up to Fallout 4, where people are like, yeah, it's probably going to be pretty buggy, but that's just the Bethesda charm. When I did that collab with Maddie called it the Bethesda stank, which I love that. I thought that was a great way of referring to it. Where like for a while, maybe it was like, oh yeah, that's just how it is. But eventually people get fed up with it. And they're like, okay, enough's enough. Okay, I'm done. I'm done with this. And with Todd, I think he's still in the mindset that they can get away with certain levels of clunk or problems because modders will fix it, because gamers will put up with it. And their games have never been like 10 out of 10s, except for like a Skyrim. That was kind of their one-off. But in general, their games are kind of like good. They're reviewed as like, 8 out of 10 typically. And then the communities build them up into something even bigger and better. As you can see here, the IGN specifically refers to their review where they said they called it disjointed space travel, non-existent maps, aggravating inventory management, and slow rollout of essential abilities, holding it back from getting a higher score. It has mixed review scores on Steam. With negative reviews pointing out the excessive loading involved with space travel, empty spaces on planets, and lack of people or enemies to encounter, blah, blah, blah. But in this interview with Kind of Funny Games, Todd addresses the reception of Starfield, or as interviewer Greg Miller put it, polarizing Starfield. And in this interview, it was like, I appreciated Greg asking the questions because he asked them pretty directly, which is all like I can really ask. He kind of built in outs and little things that he could refer to, but he at least asked him the questions. Todd didn't answer them, and then he immediately pivoted off. Maybe they talked beforehand that he couldn't say anything negative or couldn't discuss any problems or anything like that, but it was kind of frustrating that there was no pushback.
And, each of the franchises should kind of be its own thing.
For sure.
And so obviously, look, there are areas that the maps or some other things, gameplay options that we're adding, other display modes on console that people have asked for. And we want to do all that stuff. Take some time, but we're excited to get stuff out there.
Well,
so it's all, maps, which to be clear is like a huge shortcoming. My little conspiracy theory with the maps in Starfield is that they were not included at launch, or at least they were not prioritized to finish before launch, because they revealed how empty the planets actually were. When you actually get a top-down view of the planet surfaces you land on and you see, oh, in all of this, I have 3 things to find, it actually makes it feel less impressive. Because it removes the mystery. It removes the mystery of, I'm going to crest that hill and see if I can find something magical and special and interesting. And in reality, there's nothing over that hill, but at least there's the mystery that kind of covers it up. And I think that was actually a somewhat brilliant thing that Todd did with Starfield, is that he did not lift that curtain so that you could see how the sausage was being made and that maybe it wasn't as magical and mysterious. But by adding the maps now we see it, and it actually, I think, harms the exploration. It's like city maps, absolutely a must. Maps when exploring planet surfaces, I think actually probably do more harm than good, which is funny. I think it's actually quite funny that adding that feature actually harms exploration even more, because it reveals just how empty the spaces are.
He said, we got more DLC, or an update getting announced this week, you said, a couple days from now, with some stuff out?
Yeah, should be. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good. How imminent is that coming up then? Getting announced, but fairly imminent.
Don't hold me down.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
It'll be this week. Should be.
Well, I'm glad at least you're not, inundating everyone with content. Oh man, everybody's like, I wish there was more Bethesda games to play. Now you got Fallout 4, you got the patch.
Are they just pivoting off of it? Let me see.
For entry, which is great, and blah, blah, blah. I said how much I like Starfield. The chat over here is then on fire of people who loved it or hated it or whatever in between, right? My question for you is the reception at launch of Starfield. How does that affect you and the team? Because what I thought was different about the lead up to Starfield was that you were all wearing your hearts on your sleeves and saying, this is the game we've always wanted to make. This is like something that means so much to us. And so when you get there and you get a game that is then polarizing to this level, what was the takeaway? What was the office like on launch day, review day, all those?
Well, there's a few things, and thanks for asking. The number one that we're always concerned with is how is the game holding up, right? What's our bug level? What's the crash rate? So first of all, we were over the moon with how kind of the actual data we were getting back and how the
It's like he just immediately pivots off and is like, yeah, we had a lot of players. It's like, yeah, I mean, yeah.
The game was performing on a
It was on Game Pass, so you'd hope so.
technical level. That one to us is always sort of most important on the dev side. Number two was the amount of players. Kind of set a record for how many players that we had in a game. Obviously, Game Pass is a part of that.
Of course.
You know, but to see the amount of people playing and like, okay, we've had more players at launch than we've ever had in our careers, and the game is holding up really well. It's a really joyous moment for us, particularly after how long the game took. On the review side, and we've been through this.
Okay. I was about to answer the question. Let's see.
So it's not sort of new to us. What's new is it's a new IP. So you know that we're going to be doing some things differently than we've done before. And obviously we had people who loved the game, both on the review side, and people who liked it less. I think
he's such a salesman. It's so funny. It's like, yeah, we had people that loved it and people that hated it. No, you can't say that. People who loved it and people that loved it less. It's just so funny. It's the same thing where like when I was selling TVs and stuff, we were trained to phrase it the same way where it's like, yeah, no, it's not that this TV is worse than that one. That's twice the price. This TV just offers different features. This TV just has a different use case. It appeals to different people. And we wouldn't use the words expensive. We'd be like, yeah, if you have more buying power, we could go up there. Like, it's just so funny because it's all just like those little gimmicks of salesmanship. And it's why like Todd is a very gifted salesman. There's no doubt about that. He's also a good game designer, but sometimes I feel like one of those overtakes the other in terms of what's actually making the game fly off the shelves, you know? Yeah, how do you feel about the mixed reception to your game? Well, we had a lot of players. Yeah, exactly.
The majority of our reviews were in the 90s, which, look, that's great. I don't want to ever be in a world where that is not a great place to be in terms of kind of critical reception, particularly in a year where there are so many amazing games out.
Sure.
But
I'm going to fact check this in real time, okay? We're going to go to the Metacritic page. He just said, I believe the majority of reviews were in the 90s. Let's see. Because it was a pretty evenly spread thing. Where's the PC version? View all platforms PC. Will actually do him a favor. We're actually making this... We're actually like going PC. So we'll make it even easier, okay? And then we're going to go way back machine because I don't want to include any reviews that were launched after the fact. Because I'm guessing somebody archived this, but maybe not. Let's see. It's taking its sweet time. Slowly. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. We're not gonna actually be able to do this. Can we just do this? What an archive. Has somebody archived this? Last archive 5 months ago. Okay, so it's still November. It's not where I wanted it. Damn it. Okay. I don't actually know. So it's not quite, yeah, September 20th. So after 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. No, not 16. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 20. That's close enough. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. 31 out of 73. If we knock out those other 3 that came after, like less than half. So if we're being pedantic, we could be like, you had like 40% of your reviews, 45% of your reviews in the like 90s or higher. So close enough, Todd. I'll let you off on that one. That one's close enough. I'll throw a fit.
Obviously, look, we see the feedback. We see a lot of players saying, this is what I want out of a Bethesda game, which is to explore a world in a certain way. And Starfield didn't give me that. I prefer the way it's done in Fallout or Elder Scrolls, and perfectly understandable, right? In terms of, hey, this is a different experience. And I do think, you know, for us, particularly me going into a science fiction game, I want to be able to land on all the planets. I want the game to say yes to us, knowing that that content is going to be different than you've seen from us in the past when you're exploring a landscape. And that's some of the trade-offs we'll make to do what we think makes, you know, a science fiction game like this, that's kind of based in this kind of fiction and reality, to make it what it should be. And, you know, each of the franchises should kind of be its own thing.
For sure.
And so obviously, look, there are areas that, you know, the maps or some other things, gameplay options.
We heard this. But again, he phrases everything around it's different. It's different. And that's basically how he excuses away why it wasn't received well, is because it was different than people expected it to be. And that's not the point. It wasn't different. It was worse. You know, like there's some things that are just worse than the contemporaries that are doing this. Like, and that's the problem, is that we look at it and it's worse. That's what people are pointing out. But when you're so focused on how to spin it, how to keep it chipper and happy and make it not sound bad, and you refuse to acknowledge any shortcomings or problems, that's how you get games like this repeatedly. That's how you get games that fail to make significant improvements release over release. And it's just, it drives me a little bit crazy. Luke, what's one positive thing you have to say or can't ignore for these present day companies, Bethesda, Ubisoft, Activision, EA? One positive thing you have to say or can't ignore. Well, I mean, I guess I could go through each of them. For Bethesda Game Studios, I do think that they have a real talent for environmental storytelling. They have a real talent for taking some basic concepts and then just gamifying them in a fun way. So, you know, they can take something like, for Fallout 4, they can take something like the base building, which previously, if you had talked in like 2012 about, oh, the next Fallout game is going to have base building where you can like customize your own little base, it wouldn't have really made a lot of sense. But in the context of Bethesda games, when you're running through the wastes, collecting garbage and stuff, and then you bring that back and that garbage is all, you know, components to be used in building things, all of a sudden it starts to make sense. You understand the gameplay loop of exploration. You come back, drop off your materials at your base, maybe do some more building at your base using those materials you just collected, and then you go back out and continue the loop. They do a really good job of that type of thing. And I think they deserve credit for that. As for, let's see, the other ones, Bethesda, Ubisoft. Ubisoft, I said before, has really, really impressive tech. The data streaming alone that they can do is outrageously impressive. Like the fact that in AC Origins, for example, you can take your bird, fly it up in the sky, fly to the other end of the country of Egypt, and then press one button, and within a second, you're back controlling Bayek in Alexandria. That is outrageously impressive. It's crazy. It's crazy. So Ubisoft has really impressive tech. And if you haven't played something like Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, they have really impressive graphical fidelity that they can swing out when they want to. So that's why I think AC Shadows is going to probably look and play pretty impressive based on some of the stuff that I've seen and heard. Beyond that, as for Activision, something positive I have to say about Activision. Okay, this is going to be the hard one. Something positive to say about Activision. I'm honestly not sure. I'm man. I'm like, I wanted to be like, oh, graphically their games are really impressive. And I'm like, well, not crazy impressive. There's a lot more impressive first person shooters. Then I'm like, well, the value that they bring, well, no, not really. Like, I guess for as far as free to play games are concerned, it's a massive game and they do a decent job with supporting it. Decent being the operative word there. Good competitive scene. Yeah, that's true. Because I'm mainly thinking about the multiplayer and stuff. So they communicate with the community a lot. Yeah. So there's that. Yeah, that one's harder. But I'm also, to be fair, I don't play a lot of Activision stuff, so I'm not exactly the one to point to with that, you know. So I think that's important to point out. As for, I mean, you could also say that it's they run Call of Duty, the world's biggest franchise, and that requires some level of know-how or skill at the end of the day. I mean, if it were easy, everybody would do it. So at the very least, like, they seem to know what they're doing when it comes to Call of Duty. Like, I might not find it that fun or engaging anymore, but at least they seem to know what they're doing. As for EA, I think EA deserves a lot of credit for their EA Originals program. I think they deserve a lot of credit for giving some of these smaller studios the chance to blow up. Like, for example, one of my favorite games I've played in many a moon was It Takes Two. And It Takes Two was an EA original. Like, this game would not have seen the light of day.
This is Joseph Fares.
Oh my God, it's so loud. This game would not have seen the light of day if it wasn't for EA Originals. Which is crazy because this is the same company that does like FIFA and Madden, but they also were behind publishing and greenlighting this project. And this was, you know, of course, it won Game of the Year, and I think rightly so. It's freakishly impressive as a game. If you've not played It Takes Two, you absolutely should. Seriously, every like 15, 20 minutes, probably a little more than that, every 45 minutes, they introduce all new gameplay systems. And you're like, how is there more to this game? There's even more? It's just so impressive. I love it. And I won't spoil it, but there's one scene that happens with a stuffed elephant that is one of the funniest and most like dark humor, outrageous things I've experienced since probably The Stick of Truth. It's so good. It's so good. So, yeah, Dead Space, all that stuff. So I do think it's important to occasionally, you know, take a moment to appreciate even the studios we like to meme on for good things they've done. And no, it's very, very rare to find a company that is just a monolith of terrible, horrible things. You know, there's usually a couple of shining spots on an otherwise tainted canvas, you know. Did you play It Takes Two with Nikki? And if so, when is the divorce? Yeah, we did play it together. And we actually had a very, very good time. It was a very good time. I've actually, now that I look back on this, I kind of want to play it again. We've been watching a documentary at night. We'll play games with each other, or either together or separate. It depends on what we're feeling that night. But we'll play games until like 10:30. And then we come down into the like family room, theater room, and we will watch like a documentary or do something together. And recently we've been going through the documentary series No One Saw a Thing, about the Ken Rex McElroy murder vigilante thing that happened in the 1980s in Skidmore, Missouri. Fascinating docuseries. A little repetitive. It could be probably a few episodes shorter. There's a little bit of bloat there, but a very good series. But after we finish that, maybe we go back through It Takes Two again, because it's so good. It's so good. EA published Titanfall. Yeah, exactly. And Apex, as far as live service games, pretty impressive. Pretty impressive when it's not crashing randomly on my computer. I don't like that it's built around loot boxes, but it also came out at that time when loot boxes were still big. And at least they're all cosmetic. There's nothing gameplay affecting in it, so you can't be that upset about it. But yeah. Play games with each other. Wink, wink. Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have 2 kids. What do you expect? Let's see. Let me catch up on the rest of these. Leonard, I can't speak. I'm so sorry, Leonard. Thank you for the 5. Where does Suicide Squad rank in terms of biggest disasters in gaming history? in terms of total money wasted and blown, it's got to be pretty high up there, honestly. Like, I think they probably lost $200 to $300 million on that game. Like, it's up there with Forspoken, I think, almost without a doubt. Like, they lost a lot. They lost a lot of money on that game. Leonard. Yeah, I right as it came out of my mouth, I was like, what? Russell, and yeah, thank you for that super chat asking that question. That was very good. Okay. Anthem, yeah, Anthem, they probably burnt a lot of money on that. But that was also before all this inflation crap and before games really got crazy expensive to produce. So, yeah. Luke made more money, or Luke made money on that game. Warner Brothers lost money, a lot of it. No, it's actually funny because if you're looking at it purely like by the metric of profit, this is what's really, really funny about it. So like, for example, Warner Brothers spent, say, $300 million on that game. Just tons and tons of money. And so they needed to make just as much or more in order to turn a profit, right? They need to make this much and then they'd make a profit of that amount. Instead, it looks like they've probably made like this much with some paid cosmetics, some of the $70 sales, but that's it. So all of this is loss. And so they've lost a hefty chunk of change, you know, minus probably 200 million or something. And then for me, my costs are extremely low because it's me paying my editor and, you know, we put videos together. And then I can make just a tad in comparison, which these are not to scale. I've not made $50 million or anything on this, but at least there is a profit. So I've made a profit. They have not made a profit. So when I said in that video, I've technically made more money on Suicide Squad than even Warner Brothers has. That is technically true, because if I made a single dollar of profit covering the game, I've ended up ahead of them, which is really funny. It's just really funny to me. Anyway, shifting gears. Let's talk about this. I saw this pop up in my feed, and I thought we would bring it up because it's a good time. Man, you farmed Suicide Squad big time. I mean, honestly, it's kind of like, it reminds me of what Todd said about Skyrim. He's like, if you guys don't want us to keep releasing Skyrim, stop buying it. Like, he's like, every time we re-release it, it'll sell 1 million copies. So of course we're going to keep releasing different versions of it, you know? And for Suicide Squad, it's like straight up. I did a video where I covered an early access version of V Rising, a great game that just went into 1.0. It's coming to PS5 soon. Like, that game is awesome, and I covered that. That video did like 77,000 views or something like that. Did fine. And I'll, you know, same with No Rest for the Wicked. The video does fine for a new release from the team behind Ori and Will of the Wisps and stuff. But Suicide Squad, I throw together a video trying to finish the episode 2 release of season 1, and that video does 250,000 in a day. Like, people just want to see it. People want to talk about it. Like, they don't want to play it, but they want to hear people talk about it. It's just weird how it works like that. Same with like for Starfield. Same thing. Like, at the end of the day, I'm in a service industry. If my audience wants me to talk about X game, I'll talk about X game. Like, yeah, I also make money doing it. But like, that's the nice thing about what I do for a living is if I'm giving my audience what they want, I also get more out of it. You know, if you guys want to hear me talk about nothing but Assassin's Creed for the next 6 months, and that's all the views I'm getting, then that's what I'll cover. And I'll make the most money out of anything I could be talking about by doing that. But also you guys will get the content that you want by doing that, you know? So it just kind of makes sense. Oh geez, no, please. Yeah. Yeah. Foreshadowing? No. Thankfully, there's going to be a lot coming out by the end of this year. Not just Dragon Age, but Assassin's Creed, Star Wars Outlaws. We're getting the Elden Ring DLC. Like, there's so much stuff happening in the next like 6 to 9 months. That's some Prince of Persia. You mean the new one that they did, the little side-scrolling one? Really, really good as far as a side-scroller, like 2D game, but not for everybody for sure. Yeah. Okay, I wanted to show you guys this though. News segment. So this popped up in my feed and it got me thinking. Basically, it's just a simple video posted by Perfect K, and I'll share the link to it in chats. There we go. I'll share the link in chats so you can go give Perfect K some love. But basically, it's just a video that's titled Assassin's Creed Should Have Kept Co-op. And it's just a series of clips of playing co-op in AC Unity with a buddy and demonstrating how fluid and cool it is to be able to run around the city together and do assassination contracts together and help each other, maybe distract a guard over here, and then this person runs in and takes out the target, and you know, it's super, super fluid. And I've actually done this. I've tried the co-op with my buddy Caleb, and it actually works quite well. Even to this day, it works quite well. And the missions are specifically designed with co-op in mind. I think at one point AC Unity was going to be pitched much more heavily as a co-op game instead of as a single player game that also had co-op, because all the missions are almost like at their best when they are played with somebody else. It's really, really, really cool. And even in the original like AC Unity gameplay trailer, let me see, I think it was this one, 2014 co-op demo. You know, this showcases a really good example of how this can work, where there's multiple points of access. You can have one of your players that's distracting somebody over on the right while you sneak in the left. There's so many different folds to it. And, you know, back in like 2014, 15, games that introduced co-op were starting to piss people off a lot, because it was like, okay, it's another attempt to get us to play games with our friends, because that drives up playtime, makes us more likely to buy cosmetics and all that. And that's certainly true. Now it's just games that full on do like live service, full stop. But back around this time in the industry, it was all about co-op, and that was the big push. And so these games got, you know, raged against at the time, but mechanically they were actually pretty decent, and they still were playable single player. Even so, that's unfortunately very scripted. That wasn't in the actual game. As far as I can remember, I don't remember guards oogling and ogling at women walking by, but it is something that I think the Assassin's Creed franchise could benefit from, is reintroducing co-op. Now they are doing that. They are bringing back co-op, and in fact, the Assassin's Creed game that's launching next year is a multiplayer game. I don't remember if it's the co-op one or if it's the multiplayer one. Let me see. I think he mentions it in this report. AC projects. Okay. Red is scheduled for later this year. Now we know it's called Shadows, with Invictus, a multiplayer offering, being planned for 2025. So AC Invictus. Everything we know. This game, upcoming multiplayer game, story and setting remain vague. Yep. Unconquerable or undefeated. Speculation suggesting the game may be set around the time of the Roman Empire, perhaps close to the time of AC origins. Let's see. We know it's a multiplayer game. How exactly it works story-wise? Yeah, we know that. Gameplay, much like the story, we don't know much about it. That it's definitely a multiplayer game revealed by Marc Alexis Cote in September of last year. So it's still very, very vague. Standalone multiplayer, home of the series, modern age story. So it's very open-ended, but apparently they're coming back with more multiplayer stuff. And whether it looks like Unity or not, who knows? It might be totally separate. It might be Hitman style, but with AC mechanics. It's really unclear at this point. But I'm just saying, like, again, buckle up, everybody, because AC Shadows, let's say AC Shadows comes out, is well received, reviews pretty well, sells really well. Even if it reviews poorly, I think it'll probably still sell really well. But let's say it sells really well. People are, all about it. Oops. And then after that, they announce this multiplayer game. People are going to lose their minds. You're going to get all these streamers and YouTubers being like, wow, Ubisoft just totally went back on all the progress they made with Shadows. They're so out of touch. They did this when in reality it's been planned for a decade that they were going to do this. And then they're going to come out the year after that with another single player game. And it's going to be the opposite of what they release next year. It's just people don't understand that they're trying to do everything all at once as opposed to just one release at a time. That does everything. Or they're trying to do individual releases. I said it backwards. They're trying to do individual releases that target a specific niche as opposed to trying to release one game that does everything all at the same time. There we go. Took me a second. Oh man, this trailer. Something else. Like seriously, look at this. AC trailers, they used to be dark, dude. Like real dark. Jesus. That's the problem with Ubisoft. They're all over the place. Well, what they tried to do for a minute with AC Odyssey and AC Valhalla is they tried to give everybody everything in one game, and it just doesn't really work. Not only does it make the game super stupid expensive, but also if the game flops for one reason or another, you're just out hundreds of millions of dollars. And then they realized, wait, we can make smaller games that target like one or two niches, and if it flops, it's not that big of a deal. But if it's successful also, like, okay, then we're good. But they can target multiplayer fans with one game and then single player fans with another. Darker fans of like darker lore, they can target with another game. And so they can kind of specialize in that way. Speaking of specializing, let me just show you what true specialization looks like. The height of film. Are you viciously uncomfortable yet?
All this time, I haven't been working on my next book. I've hacked into the most secret government and corporate secrets. The most secret.
Just love the single bite of spinach. And then he sets it down, the dedicated shot showing the spilled spinach. And then it cuts back to him, and then they're like, oh yeah, we're supposed to talk about something. Yeah, we don't deserve him. We don't deserve him. Deserve him. I can't talk. I don't deserve him. I can't even talk right. It's so good, dude. Oh, man. They couldn't even get some lettuce. Yeah, dude, for real. Just spinach.
Nick Curry donated $4.99 through Super Chat.
Thank you, Nick.
Late to stream. Apologies for being off topic. Any general thoughts on game developer unions?
I mean, I think there's certainly a very legitimate argument for them, especially in the age when studios, it seems like companies are just going to continue pushing employees harder and harder and harder to get games out faster and faster and faster. So unions could protect devs from crunch. There's the potential it could help safeguard against like downsizing and things like that. Specifically, one thing a lot of people are calling for unions over is like AI. So getting unions that specifically outlaw or prevent integration of AI into workflows that would lead to people losing their jobs and stuff. And I think for the games industry as it currently stands, they are looking at it and say like an EA. They're like, okay, these games are stupid expensive to make. We can use AI to cut down production costs, to lay people off and save money there, and also to get games out faster. So we should probably do that. But then if a union comes along and they unionize the devs, and they're looking at it and they're like, okay, well, we could do that. We could do that. But then, like, we don't actually solve any of the problems, because now the unions will also call for higher wages and stuff. And the problem for a lot of these corporations is they feel like they're already paying devs too much. Like, games are already too expensive, and unions will make games even more expensive to produce. So my fear would be the second that unions start forming within a lot of these big companies, a lot of studios will just shut down further, and then you'll just get studios outsourced elsewhere. You've already seen things like that happen all over the corporate world. The second that a business or a company starts talking about unionizing, a parent company will just shut them down instantaneously. Like, oh, we just decided to close you down. Sorry, you're all out of jobs. That's it. You know, I don't think, in a perfect world, I would like everybody to be in a union that protects them against the whims of corporate vagabonds. But realistically, I think if, say, devs at Ubisoft or devs at Sony or Microsoft, wherever, started to unionize, I think, like, Microsoft doesn't give a crap. Microsoft would just shut them down instantly. Like, instantly. Unions are quite normal in Europe. Yeah, I think in Paris there were unions that just formed with, like, Ubisoft, I want to say. Don't quote me on that. But I feel like in Paris they did it recently. They used to be very normal in the US. In, like, the automotive industry, they were super, super common. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, a union would cause cost of games to go up, which would just double down the desire for corporations to integrate AI stuff. So I think if there were unions, they wouldn't negotiate or wouldn't be able to negotiate any protections against AI. So if anything, it would accelerate the adoption of AI into production. And so I think people would unionize, but I think that they'd be out of work relatively quickly because it would just happen. So in a perfect world, yeah, everybody should have protections against, to collectively bargain. But I think in the games industry, specifically with where we are, the second that starts happening, I think you'll just see big studios shut down. You'll see AI used much faster and integrated much more quickly into workflows. And so we'll see. If anybody, if the devs have the balls to go for it and to push it, good on them. But it'll be interesting. I don't know.
Joe Mitchell donated $5 through Super Chat.
Thank you,
Have
Joe.
you played the IORN Man VR game? It's awesome. Also, it's the same team working on Arkham Shadow. I'm excited to see what they do.
I never tried it. Yeah, I never tried it. Not because I didn't want to. I just never really did. But I could see it being cool to, like, fly around in an Iron Man suit and stuff. I could see that being fun. Combat. It is kind of like the perfect game style for VR. I could also see myself getting super motion sick playing this. Like real bad. Oh, it's making me nauseous just looking at it. I'm a pansy when it comes to VR stuff, though. I gotta work up to big games like this that are really intense. I can see myself getting super, super nauseous. Yeah. I mean, it looks cool. Maybe I will try it. They seem like a very capable dev. I mean, this is really impressive that this is running through VR. I'm sure it's going to be, it'll make me sick if I try it, but still. Yeah, it looks amazing. I would 100% end up vomiting on the carpet. Yep. I have a government recruitment job. If they can use AI to speed up the recruitment process, they can certainly use it for games. They underestimated how many man hours they saved. Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, AI is going to be used much more frequently in the games industry in the coming years. Like, there is no question. It's just a matter of how quickly they can get it going. So certainly I think it's going to be more and more mainstream as time goes by, but I mean, I think we're going to just end up with hopefully games coming out faster and higher quality. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe it won't. But I do think we're going to see even more layoffs and stuff because games as they are just frankly too expensive. With like inflation making the cost of living go up everywhere, everybody had to get raises. And, you know, if they did get raises at all, some companies didn't give out raises, but some did to make it in line with inflation. And so now the cost of everything has gone up. And so cost of game production has also gone up commensurate to that. And so games just, the math doesn't math anymore. It just doesn't make sense to make a $300 million game and release it like exclusive on the PlayStation 5. It just doesn't make sense. Like Spider-Man 2 almost certainly did not make a profit by itself because it was so expensive to make, and only having the PlayStation 5 to sell on, like it just, at some point it doesn't really make sense. So something's got to change and shift, and either they make smaller games that are cheaper, they make games more efficiently so they're cheaper, or they just stop making the big games, or they charge more and make more money off of each individual game. And they're trying to do kind of all of that all at the same time. They're trying to make games more efficiently with AI. They're trying to make games smaller in scope, which is why like Spider-Man 2 is only like 16, 17 hours long instead of like 40, 50 hours. And then you're also seeing them trying to get more money out of everybody with special editions, with DLC, with cosmetics, all that stuff. So devs can't make fast games. Skill issue. How do you feel about AI literally inside NPCs? Do you think that would work or cause many more issues? Think it'll ever happen? Oh, it will happen. The way I've described it is that it's like a dream come true for companies like, say, an EA that wants you to set up or wants you to get into a subscription model or something. Because the way that, like the NVIDIA NPC AI demo. Yeah, this demo that they shared with the stupid ultra wide. I think it's just ultra wide, but still. So you see this where he's actually talking to an NPC through a mic basically and having a conversation with him. Super cool concept, super awesome. And the idea would be that you could put this into single player games, but it would have to always be online to process the dialogue through the LLM they're using or whatever. And so that immediately they love it. Piracy prevention, forces online connectivity, which allows them to push things like cosmetics or microtransactions. So always online being a requirement to achieve this. They love that. Secondly, to do this stuff through, like, say, an OpenAI model, for example, you have to use what are called tokens. Tokenizer. So OpenAI's large language models, sometimes referred to as GPTs, process text using tokens, which are common sequences of characters found in a set of text. The models learn to understand the statistical relationships between these tokens and excel at producing the next token in a sequence of tokens. You can use the tool below to understand how a piece of text might be tokenized by a language model and the amount or the count of tokens in that piece of text. It's important to note that the exact tokenization process varies between models. Newer models like ChatGPT 3.5 or 4 use different tokenizer process than previous models and will produce different tokens for the same input. So if we, for example, many words to map one token, but some don't. Invisible Unicode characters like emojis may be split into many tokens, blah, blah. So they do all of this. And then they show you how the language model breaks down those tokens, and then it's going to process these tokens as part of this language model. And so it's kind of like using broad, you can use it, almost think of it like, I don't know, shapes to build a broader puzzle that takes on a different appearance. You're taking these individual tokens, and then the model can tie this together and figure out, using this pattern of tokens, what are they trying to communicate? And then they can figure out how to fill that in. This is why some people have phrased GPTs as basically like really, really advanced finish the sentence simulators, because that's basically what they're doing. But how they monetize this is with these tokens. They can take it and they can charge you based on the processing of each individual token. So if something takes, you know, you see the old ChatGPT 3 model produce 64 tokens, the newer ones only 57 tokens. So, and the newer ones that are even faster are probably even less. But in order to process this stuff, that takes processing power, and they charge you based on the number of tokens being processed. So what they could do is they could have something like this that's really, really impressive, and then they could go and make you pay like a $10 a month subscription fee for this game that pays for the processing of that series of tokens when you're talking to an AI, which is cool. For the company. It's bad for us, because it would mean that they could have just like a few dialogue options if you're playing offline, for example, if you don't pay that subscription. But if you want the full AI dialogue, you have to pay the $5 a month or $10 a month subscription fee in order to get the AI processing dialogue. So for them, it represents also a chance to charge you monthly or weekly or by hour of gameplay or whatever they would do. So for them, they love it. They eat this up. So AI models will come to gaming, and I guarantee you when they're first announced, it's going to be it's going to be received in a pretty toxic way, because it will be pitched in a toxic way, because they're going to be like, yeah, this really cool thing that enhances single player experiences. Awesome. Also, you're going to have to pay weekly for it or monthly for it or whatever. It's like, oh, don't like that. And it's understandable. Like, if you buy this game in 10 years, probably it'll be much cheaper to process these tokens, but it won't be free, which is the point. It still takes processing power from a data, like from a server farm. So understandably enough, like, they want to have some way of making, at least breaking even and taking cash in to justify and pay for that processing. Ideally, next gen consoles just have AI processing units and stuff in them that can handle that and will be able to do it all on device. That would be ideal. But my understanding is that it's not that doable today. Maybe in 5-10 years, but time will take it'll take time before we get there. Yeah. They won't use OpenAI's AI or API, way too expensive and slow at this scale. They would have to use an open source model or a closed one, be in partnership capable of running an interface at that scale. Yeah, no, absolutely, Ace. I mean, we're using OpenAI because they have like the tokenizer thing that you can actually see to see how it works. But without a doubt, they'd be figuring out their own thing. We know that Sony, allegedly for the PS5 Pro, has onboard AI processing stuff for super resolution and basically their own version of DLSS, which cool, down for that. But the expectation is that they probably have AI processing enhanced also on the PlayStation 6 for onboard processing of language models and stuff like that. So they're probably working on trying to develop their own algorithms and stuff, but this stuff is going to be extremely hard to get running, I think, on pretty much any console, which is why they probably rely on cloud infrastructure for it. And that's why somebody like Microsoft is primed to pull it off with their games through Xbox and that whole ecosystem, since they have the partnerships and they have Microsoft Azure and all of that stuff. But it's still very far away before it's actually in a like AAA game that millions of people can buy. Doesn't the PS5 Pro have AI units along the GPU? Yeah, but not all AI processing centers on like chips are created equally. Some are specialized for different things. And AI is such a buzzword now. You also really have to question what they mean when they say AI, because sometimes it just means, well, it's like, it's like intelligent processing, but it like changes what it does. So like, for example, on my motherboard, it can do an AI overclock, which basically just means that it pays attention to the temperature on the die. And if the temperature is low enough, it'll crank the frequency higher. And if it's too high a temperature, it'll lower the frequency. Like, it's just a variable like scaling equation. Like, it's a very, very simple thing, but they call it AI because it's like, well, it's an artificial intelligence. And it's like, is it though? Like, computers were doing this 20 years ago with CPUs. Like, so it's really not that novel, but AI sounds cool. So we're all just going to use it, Everybody's going to just say it. Martian Milk. That's an awesome name. Glad you made it. Glad you made it. Yeah, 100% a buzzword. Yeah, I whenever anybody says AI nowadays, I'm like, okay, cool. But like, show me what it actually does, and then I'll make up my mind if it's something that I actually am interested in, I don't know. YouTube recommendations are off today, man. Walter White and Mario Kart Wii. Like, I don't know why. YouTube's like, yep, this is what he wants. This is what Luke needs. It's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. Okay, they got me. They got me. Fair enough. Fair enough. Oh, man. Oh, man. No cookout today? Yeah, well, I gotta... Oh. Well, my wife's calling me, so I think that's probably my sign. So, unfortunately, guys, I'll call it there. I think we're going to go hang out with my family. So, I'll call it there. Thank you for watching. I love you all desperately. Sorry for the abrupt end, but I love you all desperately, and I'll talk to you very, very soon, okay? Have a wonderful rest of the holiday, okay? Much love. Bye-bye.